Welcome. Welcome to the May 2nd Kent County Planning Commission meeting. I'll call the roll. Jim Saunders.
Here.
Ray Strong.
Here.
Paul Ruge.
Here.
Paula Reeder.
Here.
And Sean Jones.
Here.
Bill Crowding is here. Note that time he came in. We, in front of us in your packet, we have the minutes from the April 4th meeting, the April 11th zoning review, map review meeting, and a closed session. Unless there's questions or corrections, I'd take a consent motion to approve them all. But if there are corrections or errors, please note them.
We accept the minutes.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Our first application, Maneri Stream, has been pulled off by the applicant for this meeting, and so we'll move to 24-17 MDL 153 Mason Solar Major Site Plan Review. This is a concept review. Is the applicant or the, oh, let's get the staff here. I'm sorry about that.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, my name is Mark Carpenter, Associate Planner of the county. We have before us the application of MDL 153 Mason Solar LLC. They're requesting a special exception and a concept site plan review. They're proposing to construct a utility scale solar energy system in the agricultural zoning district. This proposed site would be at the property of Thomas and Alice Mason, address 9425 Fairley Road, Chestertown. The outage or output of the proposed array of panels would be 1 megawatt. It would be approximately 5 acres as defined within the fence. The location is the intersection of Fairley Road and Fish Hatchery Road. The property is a mix of woodlands and cultivated fields. The area is predominantly farmland. The site is adjacent to the unincorporated village of Fairley. There are residential properties that abut the location of the proposed development. Mount Pleasant Church and Mount Pleasant Cemetery across the Fairley Road from the proposed development site. They have submitted plans for sediment and erosion control and stormwater management, landscaping, and forest conservation have also been submitted. In regards to relevant issues, for special exception, Article 5, Section 1.3.265 of the Kent County Land Use Ordinance established that solar energy systems, utility scale and farms may be granted as a special exception in the agricultural zoning district. And Article 7, Section 2 of the code establishes the following standards for consideration of special exception. I won't list all of those, but there are a few I'd like to highlight. One is that the nature of the proposed site, including its size and shape and the proposed size, shape, and arrangement of structures. Another is the proximity of dwellings, houses of worship, schools, public structures, and other places of public gathering. And also consistency with the comprehensive plan, land use ordinance, and where applicable, the village master plan. Staff and TAC comments to these standards are as follows. The proposed entrance is from Fish Hatchery Road, where there's an existing compact gravel culvert. Once construction is completed, there are no known disruptions expected to impact traffic patterns. There is no known impact on community facilities and services. The proposed facility will be adjacent to the village of Fairley. As mentioned before, Mount Pleasant Cemetery is across the road, as is the Mount Pleasant Church. Fish Hatchery Road and Fairley Road, Route 298, run adjacent to and through the unincorporated village of Fairley. Mount Pleasant Church is listed in the Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties and is located at that intersection of those two roads. The Kent County Comprehensive Plan lists significant views as an important village characteristic, elements of which include, or may include, an identifiable icon of the community's character, prominent views within the community, and special entranceway features and/or waterfront areas. A goal of the comprehensive plan to ensure that all new development or redevelopment meets high standards for planning workmanship workmanship and design. And proposed strategy to fulfill that goal is to ensure that future development, redevelopment, and infill is completed in environmentally and context-sensitive manner. The county will encourage techniques to protect historic, archaeological, and cultural resources and scenic view sheds. The proposed facility and associated buffer may impact the vista associated with this village entryway. The proposal may be inconsistent with the intent of the comprehensive plan to ensure development in a context-sensitive manner. The applicant will need to demonstrate the proposed energy system protects cultural resources and scenic view sheds. The proposal is consistent with the goal of the comprehensive plan in promoting sustainable building practices and providing effective renewable energy strategy. For utility-scale solar energy systems, a special exception review criteria, there's a collection of those. I'll go ahead and skip to the comments in regards to those criteria. The applicant has submitted an application for the special exception and for the concept review. No glare or site analysis yet been submitted. Year-round screening as specified in the land use ordinance has been proposed, and the panel array will be lower than maximum allowable height. The area of use as defined by the perimeter fence per Article 7, Section 7 will not exceed 5 acres. The area disturbance encompassing the solar array and the landscape buffer will not exceed 9.27 acres. There are no proposed changes to the remainder of the 335.16 acre property that is agricultural production. And we see no evidence that the proposed solar use will be anything but incidental to the use of the farm. The applicant will need to demonstrate that the proposed energy system will not interfere with the view of or from sites of significant public interest. There are countywide standards in regards to utility-scale solar projects within the county. Our comments to those are as follows. They are proposing to meet the 200-foot minimum setback. That's based upon the location of the panels as opposed to the fencing. The site plan states installation maintenance standards are to meet the standards as established within land use ordinance. Those are listed. The end portion, they do state in that plan that evidence that the solar panels are designed to avoid glare and a reflection are to be provided. The forest stand delineation and forest conservation plan have been submitted. A forest conservation deed restriction of 1.39 acres proposed along the northern portion of the property. A 60-foot wide landscape buffer has been submitted and adheres to the requirements for size, species, variety, and arrangements. In order to maintain the natural drainage, the applicant is requesting a waiver from the requirement for a berm. The landscape plan must meet the required heights and arrangements of plans for that. No irrigation plan or vegetative maintenance agreement has yet been submitted. The entrance is designed to ensure that neighboring properties, public rights-of-ways, and roads are not exposed to an unscreened view through the entranceway. That's because there's a dog leg to that entranceway, as you can see on the site plan that was submitted. For site plan review, this is concept, and as concept review, Article 6, Section 5.3 established that for concept review, the Planning Commission will comment and provide guidance as to the feasibility, design, and environmental characteristics of the proposal based on the standards set forth in this ordinance, the Village Master Plan and the Comprehensive Plan. Our comments are as follows. The proposal is consistent with the goal of the Kent County Comprehensive Plan in promoting sustainable building practices and providing effective renewable resource strategy. The applicant must demonstrate the proposed development will not interfere with the view of or from sites of significant public interest, which I've mentioned before. The proposal is consistent with the general intent and use of design environmental standards found in the land use ordinance. Internal traffic is anticipated to be minimal. There are no known unreasonable demands on public services and infrastructure. No sewage or refuse disposal activities are proposed. Noise is anticipated to be very limited and inaudible off-site. A stormwater management plan has been submitted. No existing vegetation is to be removed. Staff does recommend sending a favorable recommendation for the special exception to the Kent County Board of Zoning Appeals with the following conditions. One, that they provide evidence that the glare or reflection onto adjacent properties and adjacent roadways shall not interfere with traffic or create a safety hazard. And Second is they demonstrate that the proposed energy system will not interfere with the view of or from sites of significant public interest, and that the proposed development integrates into the existing landscape.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for the staff on this? Now, we're going to handle the concept first. Is that what orders would you recommend?
Yeah.
Then, okay.
Because I think the comments you would have on that would be pertinent to any recommendations you'd have to
Right.
the Board of Appeals for a
Good.
special exception, yeah.
No questions for Mark? Is the applicant or a representative of the applicant available? Step forward, please, and if you're going to speak, come up. So, can you all raise your right hand? Does the unless you're an attorney, one of you, you can leave. We trust you so much. Is the information you're about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Can you all state your name and address for the tape?
My name is Ted Hastings. I'm with Becker Morgan Group. That's 312 West Main Street, Salisbury, Maryland, and I'm associated with the company.
Josh Spencer, I'm a project manager for Pivot Energy, 8419 Percheron Pass, San Antonio, Texas.
Tony Cooper Smith, I'm with McAllister, Detar, Showalter, and Walker, 100 Northwest Street, Easton, Maryland.
Thank you. Grab a seat. What can you tell us about your application?
Yes, so it's an approximately 1 megawatt array solar facility. We've provided the required 60-foot landscape buffer. We've tried to site and locate the project to minimize any impacts to neighboring properties. We have also looked at the, adjacent solar facility as well, and the existing 20-foot buffer on that, and are seeing that it's pretty well covered up. So we're hopeful that that 60-foot buffer that's, a little bit wider there will help keep that consistent as well. As part of the permanent Maryland Solar program, there would be a 40% subscriber requirement for low to moderate income subscribers. So we would be required by the program, 40% of all subscribers to the system would have to be low to moderate income, and they would have to at least have a 10% bill credit, essentially, to that as well. For competitiveness sake with other providers, typically we're probably seeing more of like a 20 to 25% discount to those bills, just to be able to recruit those subscribers into the system. So, hopefully helping benefit the local community, low to moderate income users, subscribers of the system. So happy to, answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone else? State.
Sure, we're happy to answer questions. I am happy to touch on the screening issue. If that's helpful, I can do that now, or if you guys want
Why
to.
don't you go ahead, and then
Sure.
we can ask questions.
Sure, so we're sensitive to the screening issue and the orientation of the project with respect to the village. And in looking at how the array was going to be configured and where it is, and the impact that it might have, a couple things to note. As we discussed, it is set back 200 feet from the roadway, and as the topography shows, there's a slight increase in elevation as you go up from the street level up to where this field is. And so in terms of the plantings and the screening that would go in, the 60-foot buffer, that's going to have a magnified effect since you have that slight elevation there. Whereas if you were looking down into a valley, you might be able to see right over the tops, but here it's a slight incline. So we think that's going to be helpful for the buffer having even more of an effect, a screening effect from the street level at that point where Fairley Road and Hatchery Road come together. The other thing is the orientation with the access over on Fish Hatchery Road. That's something where we have an existing culvert right there, and so the idea is to use an existing access that already exists, keeps that access road minimal in terms of its impact on the agricultural area, because the array can be located relatively close to where that access is while still maintaining the 200-foot setback. So we think those are relevant factors. The comprehensive plan does discuss gateway standards. It's more specific to towns, but I suppose in concept it could apply to villages. And it does identify screening as the kind of things that guidelines for gateway standards would include. So and this is on page 28 of the April 17th, 2018 Kent County Comprehensive Plan. So we think that screening and buffering is an appropriate way to address a new use that is in the vicinity of a gateway. And in addition, in this vicinity, there are there's already some utility infrastructure. The county has a solar site nearby, and there's also a pump station that, I think it's a sewerage pump station that's like right next to where the church is already. So there is some utility usage already in that vicinity.
Thank you. Commissioner, have questions for the applicant?
Got a couple. One, the power that's generated, is that going to need is there going to be any need for an increase in the transmission lines coming out of there?
We are currently in the study phase, so we have probably 2 months or so before we hear back from DPL, Delmarva Light and Power, on, what magnitude of, additional improvements may be required, whether that the existing feeder that we'd be connecting to, basically off of Fish Hatchery Road and Fairley Road. There's already three-phase electric. Our anticipation is that existing three-phase most likely will be able to handle the load just for a 1 megawatt project. It's not overly large. But we're not, we don't have that confirmed yet. But most of the upgrades would most likely happen at the substation location and not along the transmission lines.
There would have to be upgrades at the substation.
Most likely, but we aren't sure of that at this point yet. We're still in the study phase, so we'll, by the time we'd potentially be coming back for a preliminary review. I might have more information on that, but right now we just don't have that study back from DPL.
Going through that a little bit outside of town in the other direction, they had to upgrade the substation. I anticipate seeing this being upgraded. Chop Tank was upgrading. So, and quite honestly, I just came back from Cape Cod and they have the offshore wind generators and they've just put in some huge transmission lines and poles. I mean, make anything that you see around here, it just dwarfs everything around here. I mean, the stuff they're putting in is huge, and that would be a problem, quite honestly, as far as appearance. Though, I'm certainly not against it. I'm just,
Yeah.
it would be nice to see if that's addressed before, everything is finalized.
And for a 1 megawatt project, we're not looking at super crazy
Yeah, but
increases in.
You're the beginning. There's going to be more. So it's just a matter of, if the power companies are taking a look at what's going to be needed in the future, it would be nice to know ahead of time, that's all. And the other comment I have is with the buffer zone, you're going to provide a maintenance agreement with the buffer zone?
Yes.
And because that's important, because every place around that you look at a buffer,
Understood.
it's awful.
There's going to be a maintenance agreement and a bond.
Okay, yeah,
So-
that's good, because that's, like you say, this is a way into the town, it's a well-traveled road. It'd be nice to be kept well. That would be my concerns.
I have just a couple. It's more for the staff. How is the system incidental to the farm use there? There's not even a house on this farm to take any electricity back. So I was just wondering how that's incidental to the farm use. That was one question. I don't know. Make you go back up here, Mark.
So based upon the use of the property, it's agricultural, so it's the primary use. And so this component is a small portion of it, so it'd be incidental to the primary use.
So taking it out of farm production is incidental to a farm use.
Well, I mean,
Seemed
the
like
property
me.
itself, again, the primary use is ag. So I think we had this discussion in an earlier development with this applicant, or at least this agency promoting that sort of as an incidental use. So in the one that was referenced before, there's an 85-acre farm, and that was declared to be incidental to that use. And there was no residence on that particular farm either.
And then not for you, but for the applicant. I don't know if you've been up here during the recent months, but whenever we have a rainfall of, let's just say, an inch, which it seems like we get an awful lot of those lately, and a half inch, this entire field drains right at that intersection. Sheet flows across that road. It's a hazard now. I don't know, I mean, I haven't seen a stormwater management plan, but I'm assuming you're going to have something I can't imagine that those panels aren't going to put more water out there.
Actually, the good news is, like, obviously the panels are off the ground, and there's vegetation that grows underneath it. Right now, you have a row crop field. Row crop fields has the tendency to have a higher, what's called a curb number, not to get too much into the weeds on it, but you have more runoff from it. What we're proposing here is to put a meadow underneath it. So it's a special seed mix. It's going to be, rye, some other grasses and stuff between the temporary and permanent seeding mix, as well as a pollinator mix that is specially designed for this area. I work with Ernst Conservation Seeds out of Pennsylvania, and they do a specific seed for this area. So it's going to stay in meadow year-round. So honestly, what happens when you do that, you decrease the volume of runoff from the site. So it's not going to hurt the site. It's going to help the site, if anything else.
I hope so, because all the blame's going to fall on you guys from now on out there on that road, unfortunately, from the public.
Right.
The second thing is the irrigation. It calls, the ordinance calls for providing irrigation for the buffer, and I don't see that on here. So.
There's a narrative, I believe we have in there, the initial irrigation is going to be trucked in as needed to get everything established. And it obviously still has to be maintained. If anything dies, they have to replace it, and you'll have a bond in place for that measure.
We run into a problem with that a lot of times,
Yeah.
getting it replaced. And you can look across the road, that was going to be a nice landscape buffer around that solar field, and look what we got, so.
You do hold the hammer on that with the bond.
Don't we have to have fully screened in 2 years? Is that the ordinance, Mark?
Yes, for a bermless, it's required to be fully screened within 2 years.
Have we been enforcing that on others?
I don't think we've had a case.
I didn't mean a case. I mean, have we checked ones that are in? Because the ones we've approved so far, we pretty much see everything. I don't know what the years, what they are, but they're at least more than 2.
I don't have too much knowledge about previous approvals. I know that we do look at landscape plans, and I think there's one case in which we're reviewing the landscape that was proposed and approved, and making sure that the applicant fulfills those obligations.
So if I can address it, there is a case, I call it Blue Star, but the project, the landscaping is not consistent with the site plan. We've received complaints about that. We've been meeting with the property owner and the operator of the solar field. We believe there was a delivery issue in the sense that it was completed, and it's clear from inspection that trees have actually been stolen out of the ground. There's holes. I mean, it's obvious that there's been some occurrences in the field, and we're working with them right now. We still hold the bonds. We have over $100,000 that we can use to replace things if we need to, and they're working, Bramble is the property owner, to make that site correct. So we're working with them now.
Thank you. One other thing, Mark, and did you have, in the applicant's discussions for a berm, particularly to protect Mount Pleasant Church views? I feel horrible that the county has not protected their views with that
I'm sorry, I didn't.
pump station. A berm, possibly a berm to protect the view shed for Mount Pleasant Church, as opposed to just landscaping? I mean, did you consider it?
Well, I guess it would be upon the applicant to demonstrate that what they're proposing, whether it be with a berm or without a berm, is going to meet the needs by screening it. There is a 2-year requirement that's attached to being without a berm, but it does need to be fully screened so the growth potential of that plants that are installed is a component.
Well, then I'll address it, did you consider it? I guess that's,
Yeah, I consider the berm, but as you can see, the way the topography runs, like you said, all runs to that corner. If we put a berm around the site, it's going to create a swimming pool. And
a create a what?
a swimming pool. What happens when you put a berm up, the water will be trapped behind it. You won't keep the same natural drainage flow patterns of the site. So if you put a berm up and you wrap it around the site, and you wrap it around a contour, the water's going to run and stop at that berm and not run anywhere. So it's just going to pull up there.
Well, without engineers, we correct that all the time in ag lands with, drainage, ditch swales and pipes and things. I mean, that's a created problem that can be handled with engineering, I would think.
It would, yes. It creates a lot more disturbance. We try to go into these sites and disturb a little bit of land as possible. So mainly our disturbances are wrapped around the pad, the access road, and whatever little bit of disturbance it takes to put the fence in and the panels in themselves. So anything else we're digging up ground is creating a lot of disturbance. We try not to disturb the ground and also try to keep the natural drainage flow patterns of the site. You start changing that up, it starts having effects that a lot of times we don't know what happens if you change the natural drainage flow pattern of a site. So I personally stay away from berms for that reason.
I think the other issue too is you start, punching pipes through a berm, you start concentrating those flows at
That's
different
true.
points. And so then you're gonna have a lot more concentrated flows, which downstream is gonna make it a lot worse. I mean, things are gonna start to accumulate faster and start to move quicker.
I say that's all engineering. I think engineering can correct all those issues that would be created. But I just didn't know if you considered the church in all this.
Yes. And then, again, when it comes to the view shed wise, the 60-foot wide buffer is substantially larger than what's across the street on Fish Hatchery Road. I was actually up to the site before I came here, and I measured it about 20 feet wide. And you can't see those panels through that tree area. The only place you can see those panels is through the fence area, or through the gated area. So that 20-foot wide buffer is doing its job, and we're proposing something 3 times greater than that.
Well, those, of course, are closer to the road. They're visual down in the old lagoon there, that's why. But,
Right.
that, I don't want to stand for the county, but
Understand.
that's insufficient screening, and certainly the pump station is too. But this is your application, so I
Right.
hope you respect the church.
Absolutely. And when I was at the church, I actually stood at the church and took a series of photographs for the church. And the next time we come in front of you, we're going to have a rendering of what the site's going to look like. So you'll have a better visualization of it.
You'll give us that with the panels in their upright position, not laying flat. 'cause
Yes, we could do that.
15 feet's pretty high.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
6-foot tree ain't gonna cover it that bad.
Anyone else have questions for the applicant, or?
I do.
Go ahead, thanks.
How about the orientation of the panels? North to south?
North to south.
Are you concerned at all about the glare to the road and
To the road,
automotive?
not at all.
Really?
Being as the sun's to the south, and these panels, they're actually trackers. They're single-axis trackers that move with the sun. So if the sun's coming from the south and hits the panel, any glare would go to the north. You wouldn't get any glare to the south whatsoever. And what do you see to the north? You have that wooded area. And there's also going to be that vegetative buffer. We're also putting on top of that wooded area, where there's also that 60-foot buffer on the north side as well.
Okay. And with that buffer, I was trying to, and it may say this, but I couldn't find that. In terms of the trees and what have you with the buffer, what is the largest one you're essentially putting in? Is it by the caliper? Because it was telling me about the ball system, but I'm not familiar with gauging off a ball system versus the caliber of the
Right,
trunk of
typically
the
it's
tree.
2 inches, but I have to go back and, it's on the same sheet. I got it. Small lettering is in, 2-inch caliper trees.
Okay, that's what I was looking for.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, it's on the second page of the landscape plan.
thank you. Good, go ahead.
When you do that, you talk about pollinator habitats and ryegrass and things. You're using native species in the berm,
Yes,
or in the
Yeah.
a buffer.
that's correct. Yeah, we shy away from invasive species for obvious reasons.
I don't mean invasive, I just
Yeah.
mean native.
Native, we go by what your county code says when it comes to the landscaping buffer. As for the pollinator mix, again, I go to Ernst Conservation Seeds, which is the leading seed company, and that's who I get my mix from.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I'm just curious, on this one site plan, it looks like there's a whole bunch of trails running through the trees. What is that supposed to delineate?
What sheet are you looking at? It's on the lower right-hand corner.
That's a 25-foot non-tidal wetland book that you're looking at.
Is it? Okay.
I believe so.
Yeah, it's this one here, if you can find, took me a little,
FSD-1.
Forestry plan.
yeah, FSD 1 or something like
Yeah,
that.
there is non-tidal wetlands into the woods area itself. We're nowhere near the wetlands nor the buffer. The reason why we're showing that whole property is when we go out, we did a forest stand delineation of the property, and we have to show that whole property north of Fairleigh Road for the forest stand delineation. That lets us know what the quality of that forest is and where the best place to put an easement in that forest to meet the forest conservation laws.
I was just curious, 'cause it says stand number 1, stand number 2.
Oh, those are 4 stands.
And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh, that's deer stands or something like
Not
that.
deer stands, no, I see what you're saying. No, they're actually forest stands. A lot of times, even though it's all connected forest, a lot of times, there's sections of the forest that have different characteristics. So when our qualified expert went out in the field, he noticed there's probably different types of forest in that one area and labeled it as different stands, but no, I'm sure there are deer stands back in there.
Well, that's what I was looking at, and I said, geez, you don't want them too close to the panels. That'd be
No, not at all.
Thank you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Just for as far as the height of the trees, we don't take it from the bottom of the ball, we take it from 6 inches above ground.
Okay,
So,
sure.
that's all I got.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course, if you have any other recommendations for the buffer, we'll be more than happy to listen to them. We, as Becker Morgan, we actually do the landscaping plan for this, and we have a landscape architect on staff.
It'll be easier to react to that than it is to tell them what we want.
Anything, Jim? Is there anyone in the, no, there's no one on, is there anyone online or the feed that wants to speak to this application? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience here would like to speak to this application?
Yeah, I got some.
Oh, wait, hold a second. Go ahead. Sorry.
You putting these panels in, who's benefiting from this?
So the, what I kind of tried to mention earlier too was the, as part of the permanent Maryland Solar Program, 40% of the subscribers to the system will have to be low to moderate income. And then they have to have at least a 10% credit on their electric bill every month. And so basically 40% of the people that are on this potential system, which I think is about 140 households on average, would basically have to be low to moderate income, and then they would get at least a 10% credit on their bill. To recruit subscribers, we're looking at more of typically a 20% savings reduction on their electric bills. And then also, as the tax appraisal district comes in and adds, solar to that actual land use, that obviously increases the tax bill on top of, what the ag land normally would be. And so then the county would also be gaining some additional tax income, based on the solar structure being built on the site.
With the program for the electric, is that based on just the radius of the array, or anyone in the county can get onto that program?
Yeah,
For that-
anyone in the county could subscribe.
If they're on
If they're on
Delmarva.
Delmarva Power, yeah, sorry, as long as they're not on like a co-op or, if they're on Delmarva, they can subscribe.
How much of, these, I'm assuming Delmarva can only take so much of this power back. Are we getting close to that in the Fairleigh area, do you know? We got a solar field right across the road, we got one down Rock Hall, one out at Wharton. I would hate to sit here and next year somebody wants to put a few solar panels on their house or something and finds out that they can't take any more back into the grid.
No, so typically, so as we're in that study phase, and in 2 months, we'll know a little bit more, but whenever they do upgrades, like say if they are doing upgrades at the substation or they are doing feeder upgrades, they would make sure that there's still additional capacity on the system. They're not going to have us, cap something out. They're going to build above and beyond that so that future people that are installing things can, still tie into the energy grid system. And so that's why, based on the three-phase electric and this only being a 1 megawatt project out there, just from our electrical engineer standpoint, we're most likely probably not going to have upgrades on the three-phase system. It'll most likely be, if there are upgrades at the substation. And that's where they would upgrade another transformer there potentially. And then there would be, additional capacity on top of that for other people to still be able to connect into the system. They would never build it out, to full capacity and not expand, beyond that point for our
It's
system.
another site plan for us to review when they go to expand it.
So you, from what I understand, where you putting this at, you are really trying to have the people in the Fairleigh area benefit from that, if they fit the program, right? That's what you geared at?
Yeah, if they're low to moderate income, they can get that additional credit on their electric bill. Basically anybody within the county, but, anybody in that specific area can also apply. And then even people that just want to subscribe to the system and aren't low to moderate income, they can subscribe to it also. They wouldn't get that additional savings on top of it, but they would just be basically getting credit for, contributing to that clean energy installation.
And that's Delmarva.
Yes, Delmarva. Yeah, that whole program would run through them.
Okay.
For this area, what is considered moderate, low to moderate income? Or moderate, let's just say,
I don't have that statistic on me right now, but yeah.
I'm just curious, I just would like to know.
They did add, with the permanent legislation that opens in January of 2025, that people can self-attest. So it's essentially, it will tell them when they're subscribing what the definition of low to moderate income is, and they can self-attest that I make, this amount, and I fit into either low or moderate, and then that changes their savings based on if they are low or moderate.
Just curious, thought there might be a set number somewhere.
I think I want to say it does change by county. I just don't have the Kent County specific numbers on me.
That's fine, thanks.
Just an observation, there are two fairly large affordable housing rental complexes immediately adjacent to this project. And I think those people would be happy to have lower electric rates. But I drove by the other day just to get a sense of the visuals, and my sense is that the 60-foot buffer, and I'm looking at the county's installation, which is larger in terms of square footage, with a 20-foot buffer, and they're doing a 60-foot buffer here. My sense is that that would be more than adequate.
No, it should be good, but that's why I asked for the maintenance contract,
Yes.
it
Yeah.
needs to be maintained.
Yeah. Well, I put Meadow in my property, and it's made a tremendous difference in terms of soil retention, in terms of appearance. So I can attest to the other thing that happens with a meadow is that, as this gentleman suggested, is that you get deeper root growth than you get from cropland. And as a consequence, it does reduce the wet area. And that area of this property does tend to be wet. I don't know how good it is for farming. Seems like a logical location for it.
Well, I think, since we're just doing concept and
Yeah.
comments,
Yeah.
I think you really need to address the irrigation. You're gonna have to at least requirements say you gotta put it on your plan as to what the maintenance is gonna be in your agreement with whoever it is. It's not like you have to drill a well. We got a community water system out there that could more than handle this. You'll probably have to buy sewer and water allocation, but that's, we just never seem to get the landscaping that we're told we're gonna get. I know you can't see those solar panels over there now, but go out there during January. You can see them. I mean, they have not planted one tree on that entire site
They planted 3 cedars
at the gate.
at the gate, and 2 of them died.
So that's in the regulations, so you have to do that.
Wait, we all had some interest in public comments.
Can someone address the electromagnetic?
Wait, ma'am, if you want to, you have to come up and, can you raise, yeah, come on, we need to hear you on the tape, ma'am, thank you. Can you raise your right hand? Do you declare the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you. Can you give us your name and address for the
Linda
record?
O'Connor. The address is 9259 Fairley Road,
Okay.
directly across the street from where this facility wants to be
Okay, go ahead.
constructed.
You can sit down, ma'am, if you like, or
Not just as
get
we
closer to the
stand.
mic,
Thank
maybe,
you.
so we can hear you.
I've done some reading and research recently after realizing what is proposed to be constructed there. And I'm seeing a lot of controversy that's not resolved at this point regarding radiation that is emitted. And also on some of the types of solar panels, there's leakage of some type of chemical when it rains and it just runs down. And from what I can see in my readings, nothing is resolved yet. So if someone can address the magnetic field, I would appreciate it.
Okay, well, all we can do, I don't think anyone here or in staff's probably an expert on that, but if they are, please step forward. Maybe the applicant can offer some thoughts on this.
I think the big thing I definitely want to address is the panels. These are basically metal and dry-only panels. Previous versions of panels years ago used to use like cadmium in the panels, and so there was issues previously with that, potentially if they broke, having some, dangerous chemicals potentially leaking out. But for these newer version models, that basically has been replaced, and those are no longer, would be something that we would use. So there's no, leakage potential as far as the panels that we install or use as a company. And then as far as the radiation, basically from all the studies that we've seen, there have not been any negligible, anything showing that, there's large radiation fields or, electromagnetic, fields created, especially, anywhere past, a few feet away from actually where the panels are. The areas are pretty much more local, they're not, wide ranging, and then the panels are quiet. There's, really not from, the studies that are out there that we've seen anything as far as like wide-ranging impacts beyond, generally next to the solar panels.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess
I have
you
a
all
further
should know.
question. What are your thoughts on the screening, since you're a neighbor?
I'm totally opposed to it being constructed, not even considering any screening. My husband and I moved into this area because it's agricultural. It's open, quiet, peaceful, tranquil. You see wildlife all over the place. This will alter everything for us. And most of our life savings went into this property we have. It's nothing that I want to see. It will devalue everything that we have. And not only that, it's going to devalue the entire village of Fairley. It's not going to be enough to compensate for any discount you're going to get on an electric bill. And that's my opinion.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir, come forward.
You can say it if you want. I'm Richard O'Connor, wife of Linda.
You affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And your name is full name?
Richard James O'Connor.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
From our house, we can see the solar array that's already there through the trees. I mean, we see that. There is a big drainage problem. There's a sewer problem there. At least 6 times a year, there are septic tanks over by the entrance to the solar panel pumping out sewage from somewhere. I was, maybe it was associated with the rain and the flooding, it's leaking into, I don't know what they have there, a holding cell for the sewer, but they're out there pumping it out all day, several times, 6 times a year. So there is a significant drain. That whole corner here between Fitzhatchery and Fairleigh Road is a low spot. It's a natural drain. And my wife was mentioning about the worrying about magnetic fields. I worked with high magnetic fields 3/4 of my career, superconducting magnets. If you're within the range of that strong of a magnetic field, a mechanical watch will die. It just magnetizes the parts. If you have a pacemaker, it could stop the pacemaker. These are concerns about magnetic fields, and I've worked with them. Can I answer any other questions or concerns?
Okay, well, I appreciate your knowledge. I'm not that knowledgeable in magnetic fields, so I'll take your word for that.
Sir, what did you say the range was for the pacemaker, out of curiosity?
Range for what?
For the magnetic field, for a pacemaker, what would be a safe range away from that?
It's specifically how close to the field it is.
Yes, sir.
Like, if someone's visiting the array, they could have a big problem.
Okay. If they're on the road or farther away, though, would that cause a problem?
We don't know that. And
Okay,
it
I'm
could
just curious.
It could even have trouble with cell phones. We're almost in a dead zone for cell phones
I
in our
bet.
home,
I bet.
and that's with all the 3 carriers, the major carriers. We're at their dead zone.
I
We
believe
got
it.
Cricket instead. They seem to have a different location on the towers.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone else? Step forward. Can you raise your right hand? Do you affirm the testimony about the
The
truth,
other
the
right
truth,
hand.
and the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. State your name and address, please.
Janet Christensen Lewis, Millington, Maryland. I wanted to address 2 things that I heard first, because it was a question that you asked about who benefits. I think they left off the company as a beneficiary of this solar project. And the other thing is that anyone in any part of the Eastern Shore in the Delmarva can subscribe to any community. This doesn't give a specific benefit to Kent County. It's here in this county, but somebody in Ocean City can subscribe to it if they're low and moderate income or if they're just want to get into a solar. These community solars are not restricted to the immediate vicinity or the county in which they lie. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood that that's not a criteria for people getting into a program. You right now could look on Delmarva and see what community solars are available, and you could check them out. They have a list, and you could see if they're taking subscribers, if it's finished, you can do it. And it's any of the community solar projects that are in that system, and Delmarva keeps a list of them. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, you can do it. I mean, it's online. You can find it on Delmarva. I found it just the other day. Let's see. Let me start now. I would caution the Planning Commission to carefully consider the request by Pivot Solar asking for a favorable recommendation to the Board of Appeals. Robert McGinnis, Fellow of the American Society of Landscape Architects, the principal author of the Preliminary Cultural Landscape Assessment of Kent County, Maryland, published in 2019, described Kent County. He said, quote, "A large agricultural landscape on the East Coast that has a high level of continuity of land use and surviving physical characteristics is among the rarest of the rare, especially one that was so densely settled so early in the history of the nation, and which has so many identified historic resources," end of quote. This is what makes Kent County so unique, and the impact of industrial projects on rural farmland needs to be viewed through the lens of the impacts and the risk posed to the destruction of the continuing cultural landscape as defined by the World Heritage Convention of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. As has been stated, this project impacts the gateway to the village of Fairlee and directly and irreversibly impacts the viewshed and the cultural landscape of Mount Pleasant United Methodist Church, listed in the Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties, and it's K405. Your decisions regarding this development will not only have a lasting impact on the surrounding vicinity of this project, but it will set precedent for future solar projects coming to this commission. Referring to the construction notes and detailed sheets, I don't see how that small dogleg is going to protect the road from the access gate, and they have an access foot gate and they have an access car gate. I don't think that that dogleg is enough of a barrier in order to break the visuals of being able to see back into the solar arrays when you drive past. And I think that's definitely something that needs to be taken under advisement. There needs to be either more of a bend so that you really can hide that, because otherwise it's going to look like Urban Grid, which is across the county project across the street. And I don't think that particular project has a 20-foot landscaping buffer. I don't think they did any landscaping on that. The county, unfortunately, put in I think they put in 4 or 5 of these solar arrays with no landscaping on any of them. It's not something that you should hold up as being the criteria for the future. Also, I noted on the forest conservation worksheet, which I'm sure the county will work through with them, that they had a designation area. They designated as commercial and industrial, which has a lower replacement value. It's actually still agricultural and resource area that needs to be corrected, at least on their sheet for what they have before that comes through. Also, no irrigation. There is no narrative. I couldn't find it. Maybe it's in there and they can show it to me, but it's outlined in section 11E of the Kent County Land Use Ordinance. And there's no irrigation plan. And there hasn't been a single project in Queen Anne's County or Kent County that has not had irrigation that has had tree survivals. You already are, even with irrigation, you're going to have a very low survival rate. That's what happens to these projects. They're not watched over. If you're a homeowner, you baby your tree to death trying to get it to grow, but these are just projects sitting there. I would also say, they said they're going to do this, but it's impossible to know at this particular. The applicant has provided no visual simulations of how their plan will impact the viewshed from Fitch Hatchery Road, Fairley Road, and the neighboring properties. We have nothing except a site plan, so that's definitely something that, we need to be looking at. And also, the applicant is seeking a waiver for berm requirements outlined in section 11D. I am certain that every single solar project that comes before this commission is going to ask for a waiver to that, to berms. And what you decide in this case sets up a precedent and impacts future projects, excuse me. There may in fact be applications in the future where a berm is not necessary. There's natural features, or it's far enough back off the road that berms wouldn't be necessary. And in those particular, but this is not that case. This case, it's clear that because of that it's a gateway to the village, the flat topography of the parcel, and the need to preserve the viewshed and cultural landscape, particularly in safeguarding the integrity of the historic Mount Pleasant Church, this isn't the application to waive the berm requirement. And the berm does not have to be, as they described it, turning it into a fishbowl. If you have some creativity, and I'll show you when I show the video that I made, there are creative ways to create berms. They can be undulating, and this property wouldn't need berms 360 degrees around the edges of it. There's certain areas that berms would help to protect the landscape. And any qualified landscape engineer can design berms and get them to drain. There's no reason, that's not a really good reason in this case. At least the reason to preserve the drainage, the reason to have berms far exceeds the reason to preserve drainage in this particular case. And also, I'd like to know who is guaranteeing that the current proposed landscape plan will provide the needed visual screening within 2 years, and what will the penalty be paid if it does not? There's also discrepancies in the landscape plan in the detailed sheet on landscaping between, there's a drawing and there's labels on the drawing, and that's different than what's in the narrative underneath it. The caliper size of the trees is different in the drawing than it is in the narrative, so that's something that definitely needs to be corrected. And then I have a short video just to show you a few of the things. Let me start that. And I'm going to just narrate this if I can see it. The first thing that you're going to see is, this is Bluegrass Solar. This is in Queen Anne's County. This landscaping is a little over 2 years old. And it has an irrigation system. This is also still bluegrass, just from a different location. And you could see the gateway coming in. This is our own special project out in Massey. It's Blue Star Solar with basically no landscaping. And then there will be a landscaping plan that's what you approved, and you can see what you got. This is the location right there on the corner of the Mount Pleasant Methodist Church. This is the church. It was, the land was purchased for $50 in 1885. It's one of the few current remaining black churches that was established at the turn of the century. And this is an actual visual of how flat that table, this is from Fish Hatchery Road, and I was standing there, so I was about, and this is landscape berms. This is a very prominent feature. If you go to most housing developments in Delaware, you will see those undulating berms. They're everywhere. You don't even see the houses in some of the more, in where they've been developed. So berms are definitely a way. For housing, they're probably trying to screen the visuals from the road. In our case, we're trying to screen the road from the visual of the solar. But, there is definitely precedent for berms. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Come forward, please. Raise your right hand. Do you affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Elizabeth Watson, 226 North Kent Street, Apartment B in Chestertown.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. I basically endorse what Janet has just said, and I just wanted to add, another voice to the conversation for you all to consider. That's one of the oldest African-American churches in the county that has not been altered. It's a very special site, and driving into the village there, it really is a gateway. And I think we should really think hard about respecting that site in view of the fact that they've already had to endure 2 other unsightly developments right next to them. And to give them a third without really working to make that site appropriate would be important, I think, for the church. I don't know, you can ask them to come in. You can talk to them about that. I think to specifically talk about the landscaping and the design, I definitely concur with you, Mr. Chairman, and with Janet and others who thought this, is that the engineering can be done. It's a matter of expense and time and consideration. You can engineer the stormwater, which we don't know anything about yet, into the berming. There's a way to sort of make it all work together, and that's what will have to be done if that's the site. I definitely endorse the idea of a berm. I think that the applicants have just noted that the site rises from the road. That's where you have the problem. If it were lower, a small buffer would keep you from seeing down. But if it's rising up, then how are 2-inch caliper trees going to grow in 2 years to cover the elevation, okay? So the buffer is going to help with the elevation in that regard as well. The other thing is that repeatedly, and I see it in this one, we see landscape architects coming in here thinking about green fence, as opposed to how you would plant unless you were trying to build a fence next to your wall. You know, a lot of people in the country are doing this now. They're putting in Leland cypress, nice row. And that's what you just saw with the Eastern Solar, where they were trying to, and that's what you're seeing in the design. If they would alternate, and not in some sort of rigid way, but in some sort of naturalistic way, you would get more, it would be less intrusive in the landscape than simply thinking about, okay, how many of these, trees can we put in a line or staggered in a line that are, evergreen? And a few acerurums, maple shade trees here and there. That's just not going to cut it. They should be asked to integrate, to think about how our landscape works and build a 60-foot buffer with or without a berm, preferably with, but that they really think about how the native landscaping that they're putting in is going to work as it grows to look like a forest along the road. That's really what you're trying to achieve, I think, with some of these landscaping standards. But it's going to take a talented landscape engineer to do that. And I'm not seeing that on this design plan. So I think that's the last thing I wanted to say.
Thank you very
So
much.
thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to this? Hearing none, it's back up here for everyone's thoughts. First, this is on the concept, not the special exceptions, just on the concept plan, which we just give recommendations to the applicant. So I think they've heard a lot, but if there's anyone who wants to specify, or I guess, do you all understand what the community and some of the staff members here?
I have no question. Since I listen to everything, and I listen to the neighbors, and I also see that historical church over there. Let me ask you something. Why did you pick that piece of ground?
So essentially, our land origination team sends out mailers, pretty much to properties that have, basically the characteristics that we need. Enough space, especially with the 200-foot buffer width, it's hard to find parcels that are able to fit that solar parcel, basically in between those 200-foot buffers. Just access, what the topography is looking like. And so essentially, it screens through, finds a bunch of different properties. We send out mailers, and then basically, we have to work with the people that, want to sign leases with us and want to lease their land for solar. And so that just ended up being, one of the people that ended up responding and, and allowing us to build solar on their land. And so essentially, we get, a few hits, basically here or there to where we're actually able to, build solar. And then there's also competing companies out there. We have competitors who are also sending out offers. So it really limits down the pool of, available properties. And so this is, really one of the only ones we've been able to find in Kane County recently to, basically sign a lease with us.
But in that case, this was the site, this is a bigger parcel. There are other opportunities. I would think that's pretty uniform across there that would, not impact the village as much, maybe.
So we looked at basically, what are the impacts essentially visually? So say we moved the parcel, I guess, to the east, further along Fairley Road. Essentially, the issue there is we will end up having to extend three-phase electric. And so then basically in front of the church across the street from it, it's going to be these huge power lines that you're going to be adding. So, if we do that, we're essentially still going to be impacting the view without the opportunity to screen, those electric lines. So, when we're looking at, location and siting, we're trying to reduce the impact on our neighbors. And, based on looking at everything, it seemed like that was going to be the best location. And then also kind of centralizing the impacts of, being near and adjacent to another solar facility. It's all kind of in one area instead of kind of, spaced out in a bunch of, different locations. So those are kind of the thoughts of, why we ended up siting, closer to Fish Hatchery Road and not further down Fairley Road, where we would end up having to extend that three-phase electric line essentially across the street from the church.
First of all, you have neighbors that came in here and concerned about that. They speak saying in one way, this is not the right way to go. And the other thing is that you have a church that's been there for years, that's a gateway to that Fairleigh community. When you come around there and you look at that church, it means something to people. And then people walk out of that church and look across the street, what they gonna say? They come here every Sunday.
Yes, sir.
You gotta really think about what is gonna affect the members in King County. That's what you gotta think about. This is who we sit up here and represent. And from what I'm seeing, you gotta put it somewhere else.
I think, essentially that's kind of what the good thing about this, having concept preliminary and everything broken out is we can come here, get that community impact or community input, and then evaluate and look at things. I think, I think that, as far as drainage wise and just holistically for the site, the landscape buffer, I think would work. If we do need to, and the Planning Commission and the Board of Zoning Appeals recommends that we look at, putting the berm in, that's, something that we could look at. So I think it's kind of incumbent upon you all to just give us that recommendation. And if that's something that you are going to require, then, then we would be happy to put that in. So it's, I think we can look at that and evaluate that. And then if that is, being required, then we can go ahead and put that into our design.
That's all.
A couple, maybe observations. It's my understanding that the owner intends to continue to farm the remainder of this property, is that correct?
Correct.
And it's also true that this is a lease arrangement, not a purchase.
Yes, it's a lease arrangement, and so it's essentially 20 years, and then with 2 10-year potential extensions. And then we also, as part of this, would have a decommissioning agreement, decommissioning bond that we would place with the county. And so at the end of the project, whether that ends up being 20, 30, 40 years, we would have to come back in. Essentially, we would remove the panels, we pull the piles out of the ground, and then we have to restore the site, essentially back to how it was back to ag use.
Okay, so from the standpoint of locating here, we've also noted today that this is a very wet part of the farm, correct? So it's not exactly the best place to grow crops. So from my perspective, it makes sense to put this facility that would substitute meadow for farmland in a location where farming isn't optimum. If we can solve the issue of appearance, and I took a drive down the other day, I didn't even see the church as I was driving down there. If we can solve that, if they can solve that problem, maybe it could be a win-win.
When, keep talking about bonds here. I'm assuming that in 40 years, I won't be here. I won't be here in 20 years probably, but that property or your lease agreement, Mr. Mason's or whoever owns the farm after him will have a lease agreement with another entity. How do the bonds work? I mean, next year, you've got the bond posted. Next year, 10 years from now, it's transferred. How does the county keep track of that bond?
So it's through a third-party company, actually. So we actually essentially post some money with that, third-party surety bond company, and they are actually responsible for that money and putting it out whenever the county
Regardless of who?
needs it. Yeah, regardless,
of who
yeah.
owns
So
it.
that goes into effect, and that contract is in place, and that's put in place to protect protect the county, because like you're mentioning, people leave companies, to make sure that those agreements stay intact. That's why there's kind of the whole third-party thing with the bonding, to make sure that those bonding companies are responsible for it and not, pivot, say, themselves. And so that, that surety bond gets delivered as a form that's been signed and guaranteed by a bonding company to the county as part of our final, sign-off process before we get a permit.
And I'm assuming, I know how old some of us are. In 40 years, most of the people sitting in this room will not be here, and I still have a problem with those bonds. We've run into that before in the county where certain things weren't done. When we go back to get the bond, it's gone, and the county taxpayers end up footing the bill for paving portions of road or something like that, and that's just, I don't know how it's tracked.
What if, instead of a surety bond, because I've run into those too, not here, but in the past, how about a letter of credit with the bank, something that is easier for the
They don't
county to
do
draw
it for
from?
that long.
Not necessarily that long, but they can be renewed, and they can, it all becomes part of the process. I'm sorry.
The county accepts as surety, letters of credit, bonds, and cash. All three are interchangeable.
All three are capable of doing it. But a letter of credit is easier, in my experience, a letter of credit is easier to work with than a.
Bill, does the county put any kind of thing on record that a title company will know? They'll go back through and see that there's a bond that needs to be transferred as well?
Bonds are held by the county commissioner's office. There are regular renewal requirements. And in this particular case for decommissioning, we're following the state model, and staff is working with state representatives, elected, state folks to make sure that we're doing this same process because the state's already done this.
Okay.
And of course, we have legal review for our documents as well, and Cindy helps us on those matters.
This one is a 20-year lease, isn't it?
Yes, initial 20 and then 2 10-year potential renewals.
20 years.
Be around in 20 years.
It's not that, the solar panels won't be around, it'll be a totally different process probably in 20 years.
Well, we want to give the advice. To me, and you stated you have trouble finding land, to me, forget what goes on with the special exception, is they have a landscape architect on staff. You should make it so attractive that people would say, I'd like to have solar on mine because it's attractive, it's an asset. It's an asset financially and an asset visually. And that's not what we have here.
Understood.
Would it make sense even to have them maybe put something up in the field with, you say the panels are what's the maximum height? 15, 18 feet?
16 feet tilted.
If you put them on the nearest edge to the road, something out there, let's, just for ha-ha, say a 4x4 frame, just where you could see it from the road, so that you get it, people going by could have an idea what you would need for a buffer, to block those.
Yeah, I think
So that you have an idea what what it's gonna, you won't have what it's gonna look like, but at least you'll have the visual effect of the maximum height.
I think what we can do essentially is come up with a line of sight exhibit. And so we have the grades on the road and the property, and then we can basically generate, and then we're going to be working on the renderings as well visually. So I think between the line of sight exhibit and the renderings and coming up with potential, work on the design, we can come up with a better plan where everybody can visually kind of see.
On paper is one thing, but seeing it in
Yeah,
real life,
it is
that's where
different.
I was going,
Yeah.
to try to get some kind of real life visual effect of, okay, what's 16 feet look like from the road?
Yeah, no, we definitely commit to providing better renderings, line of sight exhibits, just to make things easier, because I understand, plan view, it's so hard to tell what things, even just standing out on site, it is hard to kind of visualize. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't do site visits, which I wish we would, but that's a different art, that's another day. But we don't do, but it would be nice, if we knew it was out there, we could at least, going by, at least have an idea what has to be covered.
Yes. Yeah, we will definitely work on that.
Thank you. Any more recommendations on site plan? Like we can move on to the special exception. Staff already gave their report. We have the criteria that this may be granted in the AZD, and with the nature of these findings as proposed, the staff made the recommendations. Do we And this is a recommendation of the Kent County Board of Appeals. So,
Did we hear the staff report for the special exception yet?
he gave everything.
Did he?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was combined, okay.
Do you want to make some testimony on the special exception?
I would just add that, having gone through all the different criteria, so you've got the solar-specific criteria, and then you've got the general criteria for special exception. And, I mean, we could go through, each of those individually. We have looked at those. We believe those are satisfied. Obviously, there's been a good deal of discussion about the item B under the solar-specific, item G, which talks about the impacts, visual impacts. We've been talking about that, and it sounds like the group consensus is that a berm possibly would be something to look at, having renderings that would show what this might look like from the church vantage point and other vantage points would be helpful. So we believe that with those, that would help everybody get comfortable with what it would look like. But we think that the buffer, the 60-foot buffer, would satisfy the requirement to mitigate the visual impacts. I mean, it is farmed right now, but there's nothing preventing the landowner from just, planting trees right there on the edge. I mean, you could have trees there, and you also have the other facilities that already exist that already impact the view shed today. So, I mean, we think the different criteria are met. Again, happy to go through all of these individually if that's helpful, or if you all have questions on specific ones. But in general, the thrust of the special exception analysis is you are looking at impacts on other properties, and the typical thing is noise, odor, dust, traffic kind of impacts. The special exception is a use that is presumed to be permitted, but you have to demonstrate that it won't have this undue impact. And so here, when you're looking at those traditional criteria, the noise, odor, dust, traffic, and so forth, solar projects tend to be very low maintenance, minimal amounts of traffic, no noise, or the noise as measured at the edge of the property line will be below the applicable noise standard levels, no dust, et cetera. So we believe that in general the impacts are not so significant that they would, merit a finding that a special exception shouldn't be issued. So, and in other cases, in similar cases, the Still Pond Neck Road project, which is a similar community solar project, also in a gateway area to a different village. The buffering there, we believe, was sufficient, or the Board of Appeals found, and you all found, I believe that it was sufficient to mitigate whatever the impacts were. And so this is a similar proposal.
Thank you. Deliberation up here. And that's one question, the one, both in the special, in the solar siting, but in the general, we need to address proximity to dwellings, houses of worship, and public structure. We have had testimony from a neighboring dwelling and from the public and commission about the house of worship. Where, when you hear the site plan review that we had talked about, can you certainly address that in the site plan? Are you certain you can?
As far as the, the view shed from the church, I think that the mentioning of, looking into the berm aspect of it would help address that. As far as, location to, adjacent residences, just as kind of an anecdote, I was at SeaWorld in San Antonio this past weekend, and, our company, Pivot Energy, put in solar panels on carports essentially over the close parking. So, people that are, elderly or handicapped or pay also additionally for that are able to park directly basically underneath solar panels. And, a large corporation's not going to put in panels that are going to affect, magnetic, electronics in a vehicle or say for people with pacemakers, walking adjacent to those or, standing underneath those. So I don't think there's a proximity issue as far as like health effects or anything like that for the solar panels.
Could I also add on that one, the proximity of the dwellings, houses of worship, schools, public structures, and other places of public gathering. So when we look at this is an aerial that's included in your packet that shows where the proposed solar array is. The closest residences, or one grouping of residences, is the Woods Edge Road. And that's just to the north, up Fish Hatchery Road. So I'm not sure how many houses are there, but there's an existing buffer, forested buffer, that is just to the south of where those houses are, that come up to the edge of that field. So with respect to those houses there, you have this existing forested area that already, at least to some extent, I think would block their view. But then on top of that, you're going to have the 60-foot buffer on that side as well. So the 60-foot buffer goes around the entire perimeter of the solar array and isn't just on the side where Fairley Road is. So I think that's helps to address one grouping of houses there. The other thing is that the solar requirements in the code that talk about the different setbacks that you have, it's a 200-foot setback that's required from residential and from property lines. And so the county, in adopting a regime that permits solar, has said, we think you need to be at least 200 feet away from residences. And so here we meet that 200-foot setback, which I think is more significant than some of the regular setbacks that you have. A waiver is permitted that takes you down to, I think, 100 feet if you have the approval of a neighbor. I don't think we've even sought that because we try to just fit it into the 200 feet.
Right.
So we're at the 200 feet plus the buffer. So in our view, we are meeting the county requirements for that. And then, at least in the case of the Woods Edge, you have this existing tree buffer there. On the Fairley Road side, there are a couple of houses down there. And again, we think that the 200 feet plus the buffering should be sufficient to mitigate what is being proposed there. But we understand that there were a lot of comments today about a berm, would a berm make sense, that kind of thing. And the renderings that are prepared should help to show a simulation of what that would look like. So we think that that's going to be helpful to demonstrate that view from Fairley Road, from the intersection, will not be so impactful that it creates a doubt about whether this is appropriate there. So I think, and then Josh had previously talked a little bit about the concerns about if this were located further down Fairley Road, the possibility of the additional electric infrastructure being added. So it's just another consideration that he already discussed, supporting the existing location.
Yep, and the property up the road at Fairley is at a much significant higher elevation than where we're putting this as well. We'll also be more than happy to work with you on the landscaping. The landscaping is per your code. Your code's very specific on what kind of plants, how many plants, the density of the plants. But if there's something else that you'd rather in there to substitute, we'll be more than happy to work with you on that. We're just literally going by the letter of your code and what needs to be in there.
All right, I think it's up here for some deliberation on making a recommendation to the Board of Appeals. Your thoughts? This is allowed in the AZD, assuming you can meet those requirements.
In the concept stage, do we have to, at the concept stage, and recognizing that these guys have to come back anyway, do we have to make any kind of recommendation at this point?
This is a recommendation to Board of Appeals.
Right, yeah. don't want to hire these expensive, maybe, I don't know, outstanding planners without knowing they can proceed. But we still have, it comes back to our court for this
The
landscape.
answer you're looking for is there's no approval of a concept. It's a discussion and review.
Correct, so we don't have to make a recommendation today.
But there's a special exception application to the Board of Appeals, and you do need to make a recommendation on that. Yeah. There are 2 agenda items.
Yeah.
They could have split them, but it's fine, I'm not complaining, we have a different ice. They just, they just can't move forward without that well, they can still move forward. The Board of Appeals may take our recommendation very seriously. I mean, they'll take it seriously, but whether they agree with us is another thing.
Well, I guess we ought to check to see if anyone has a comment on the special exception
Okay.
application.
All right, I'm sorry, good point. Is there anyone on the stream or in the public that has anything on, any comments on the special exception? Okay. Thank you.
And
Oh, wait a minute, go ahead. You're still sworn in, but you can just give your name for the record so that.
Elizabeth Watson, Chestertown. I just would suggest that there be, I know it's a chicken and egg problem. You know, how can you vote on something when you don't have a guarantee that they're going to do what they say they're going to do until you vote the next time? So the issue, I think, is to figure out how to do it on a conditional basis. That there's an understanding that the Special Appeals is going to hear this with your understanding that certain things are going to be addressed, and that the special exception doesn't get issued, like a permit doesn't get issued until you all are satisfied. And I think that's the main thing. I mean, I trust that we've had a good conversation on all sides about this and that you all can proceed on that, but giving it away to the special exception without keeping some leverage on your side to get the things you're asking for, the irrigation and all the rest, is, I think, important in this case.
We have done,
Yep.
particularly with unfavorable recommendations, we have said that we gave reasons that we would, if they were completed, that we would have made a favorable.
Yeah.
Don't know if we've ever made a favorable without just noting that they complied, but
Yeah.
you could always, that can be an emotion.
They're going to have to come back in before us for a preliminary and then for final.
Right, oh, yeah,
And-
right, yeah.
And I would assume it will be preliminary and then final.
I hope
afterwards.
so, I hope so.
But
And
but otherwise,
they could have just submitted for special exception first,
got it.
right? And then they have to do it at the same time, okay.
But the breadth of the special exception is simply to determine their eligibility to put a solar field on this property per the terms of our land use ordinance. Is that correct?
That, as Mr. Coopersmith said, special exceptions are deemed permitted uses with some particularized review
So staff has
to meet
found,
standards.
so staff has found that they would qualify to meet those criteria.
No, that's a decision for the Board of Appeals with your recommendation. The zoning ordinance permits the solar energy facility
Right.
in the ag zone as a special exception. Yeah.
All right. So, okay.
And, let me go ahead, state your name, please, so they can.
Janet Christensen Lewis. I think what we're hearing from their attorney is he wants you to grant the special exception, and then they'll come back and show you why it is not impacting historic resources in the town. I mean, and that is one of the criteria for a special exception to be approved, is the impact that it'll have. It's not just noise and dust and all of those things, but the impact on Kent County itself. And so what they're asking for is for you to trust that when they come in with their visuals, that they will resolve the issue of the impacts, and therefore, if you just approve the special exception, they'll prove to you when they come back that everything's going to be cool. And I think that's a risky proposition because we've seen landscaping plans come and go, and we've seen them come back in, and they don't really solve the problems. Because if you note, this particular company has stated specifically that they're towing the line exactly to exactly what the Kent County regulations are for the buffer. They have not exercised any creativity, or they have not understood the sensitivity of the landscape in any way, shape, or form until they have come here, and then they're kind of starting to go, oh, and this is an outside company who has no stake here, who doesn't realize the impact that this is going to have, that there's a important historic resource close by, and there's a town, and there's a village, and there's people living here, and this is farmland, and it's been in continuous use, and it is a cultural landscape, and they have not paid any attention to that. They have just gone, this farm owner has allowed us to this property, that's where we're going to put it, and this is the regulations for landscaping, and you have no guarantees to make your recommendation to the Board of Appeals, is my opinion. Thank you.
With all due respect, we could say that about every plot of land here in Kent County, basically.
I want to hear their turn here real quickly. Go ahead, sir.
So we understand that these are challenging issues. Whenever you have a project come into any area, there's going to be a lot of discussion about, is it appropriate to be there? What can we do to help mitigate the impact? It is an ongoing conversation. The issue with you're towing the line and just following the county code, well, the county came up with these standards. They're fairly rigorous standards that apply and are quite specific about what you need to do if you want to qualify for this special exception use. So I think the suggestion that somehow the applicant needs to, or is not being sufficiently creative when coming in and complying with the county's regulations, if every applicant came in with an overly creative suggestion, I mean, you'd spend most of your time reining them back in, trying to, get them to comply with what the code is. Now, that said, we have said that we are, here, part of this conversation. We want to hear what the comments are. We've been hearing them today, and there's always an opportunity to go, above and beyond. So if there are specific comments, and there have been specific comments today about how can this be done, I think those are things that the applicant is going to be looking at. And so then that raises the issue of, okay, like we said, we have renderings that are being prepared, the glare analysis being prepared. So that raises the question about the timing of the special exception. And again, you're not approving, as the prior commenter stated, you're not approving the special exception. You're the planning commission. You're making a recommendation to the Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals, it's a whole separate proceeding, as you know, that's on the record. Everybody will have the opportunity who's here, and anyone else who receives the notice will have the opportunity to come in and testify for that. So it's a separate proceeding. They make the actual decision to approve or not approve a special exception. And then also there's an issue, I think, of with the special exception, that is really, the analysis is that it's really a use question. Is that use an appropriate use in that area, in that zone, as applied to this specific location? And so there are other criteria that go beyond just simply the use. And in my view, the Planning Commission is largely focused on actual siting requirements and the specifics of ensuring that the project does meet the code, based on the proposed site plan. So I think those are the two different Planning Commission, Board of Appeals, and their respective roles. The planning staff did propose, they did recommend, or they did support a recommendation from you all in support of the special exception, subject to certain conditions aimed at addressing, I think it was glare and it was the visual impact. So, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud, if you followed that suggestion and that was what you gave as your suggestion to the Board of Appeals, then you'd be saying, we think in general this project meets the criteria, but we have these two specific concerns that we think if you all Board of Appeals are going to approve, then you really need to look at those two items. So, I mean, I think you could do that. If you're not comfortable and ready to make a recommendation on the special exception now, I mean, I suppose that could wait. I think we'd rather have that than a negative, a non-recommendation. So, I mean, I think you have some discretion there.
I just wanted to add that the Planning Commission does consider the Board of Appeals standards, not just the site-specific code requirements. So they do weigh in on those standards.
If we don't take action, though, don't they automatically go to the they can go to the Board of Appeals with no, if we aren't,
If you don't take action.
if we don't, isn't that a tacit of action that we
I
just,
don't think you have.
we have no advice for the Board of Appeals? If we make a recommendation either favorable or unfavorable, we can put conditions on that. But if we do unfavorable, it'll be unfavorable even with conditions. I would suggest, and it may be favorable with conditions too, but if they don't want us to act on it today, they would have to offer
I think
that.
that would be their
Yeah,
option.
right, absolutely. So,
Yeah, that would be my question. If we don't make any decision at all,
I think they
the zoning board will still be able to
Within
go
2
forward.
hours, I think they need some sort of recommendation.
yeah, I agree
Yeah.
too.
Up or down.
I agree.
I do.
I don't see how we could, how we can give, in this instance, given that they, and according to our staff, meet the basic criteria to construct this installation. I don't see how we can give an unfavorable recommendation to the zoning appeals board to hear their case. I mean, it seems to me we need to give them the opportunity to prove to our satisfaction and to the Board of Appeals' satisfaction that they can meet the caveats that the staff have recommended in recommending a favorable recommendation. I mean, I can't see how we can do an unfavorable. I mean, they meet the basic criteria. Give them a chance to show that they can meet these other requirements before you throw them out of the park. It's not fair otherwise.
You can make a recommendation.
I'm going to move that we accept the staff recommendation to send a favorable recommendation for the special exception to the zoning board of appeals, provided that the applicant can provide sufficient evidence, satisfactory evidence that glare or reflection onto adjacent properties and adjacent roadways won't interfere with traffic or create a safety hazard, and demonstrate that the system will not interfere with the view of or from sites of significant public interest, in particular the church, and that the proposed development will integrate satisfactorily into the existing landscape.
We have a motion, we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second, any discussion? Okay, I'll call poll for the question. In favor or opposed, Jim Saunders?
Based on the fact, I believe in what they said they'll come back and do. I'll say yes.
Okay, Ray, Strong?
As well, yes, based on the fact that they'll show some kind of analysis on, like a berm view as well. Just because, not to ramble on, but as stated before, if a lot of the trees don't come through, the berms will be there to already, have an established block.
Thank you, Paul.
Yes.
Bill Sutton?
Yes.
Paula?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Okay. I'll vote negatively on this one. So we have a 6-1 vote. And so I think you got a pretty good indication what the public that you see here wants.
No, yeah, we definitely appreciate the input and the discussion here. I think it's definitely helped convey, what the concerns are and what we need to look at and address.
Thank you.
Quick question, will your renderings be available by the time you go to the Board of Appeals?
Definitely.
So they will have a little additional information that we did not have the
Yes.
privilege of?
That's good.
Good point. Good point, Sean. Thank you all. Our next application, can we do the Betterton one first? Or is that, well, maybe I'm viewing it as simpler?
2 minutes, and everybody fill out.
Yep, okay. Take time.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty tickled that I got pushed back.
Agreed.
People were ready to fight over that.
Make sure the House reports, also.
There we go, Ray. Seventh inning.
Well, see, they.
Can we put that up on the screen so
They're
we
gonna
can
come back in front of us.
Huh?
Get the Orioles up 7-2, that's good.
75. You're going too far. Page 75. Better show what they will.
We ready to get this Betterton application?
Mr. Chairman, I've got to point out that I'm a member of the Betterton American Legion. But I don't think it's going to affect the way I'm looking at this.
You don't care whether you have beer up there, whether it's in town or out of town? Go ahead, Bill, I'm sorry.
Thank you, no, that's fine. So the item before you is an annexation proposal by the town of Betterton to annex into the town the American Legion property. The origination of this was the town is looking to assist the American Legion with a grant for their roof. Part of that requires that the American Legion building be within the town's sustainable communities designated community, and that would require the American Legion to be within the limits of the town. We had worked on this some time back with Maryland Department of Planning. They wanted to do it and remain in the county, but there really wasn't a way to put all those pieces together. So this is being brought forward in order to bring the property into the town so that they will be eligible for grants to repair the roof. And although this does not appear in the growth area of Betterton is very small. It's immediately adjacent to the growth area, and I think for a single property, you know, I know how the normal process would be. When we next update our comprehensive plan, we would just change the map to make that little property be included. So I don't think there's any issue with that. Staff has reviewed it, and we recommend approval.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? No one from Betterton here?
Nope. Usually the towns aren't represented for these items. Really, we're focused on the 5-year waiver.
Yeah.
Right? And they aren't even requesting one, but I know this body in the past has always recommended one just in case they need it, so.
Anyone have a problem with this and with the waiver? I'd give them the waiver only because of these organizations they're not struggling, I mean, but the numbers aren't increasing.
I would expect that 99% of the people you talk to in Betterton think it is in the town.
Yeah, right.
Probably, yeah.
Which would be 4 people.
Yeah. We take a motion, someone have a motion for it?
I just have one other question, I'm just curious, this property then would be by itself?
No, it would be connected by a road.
It's,
Right here.
no, I know it's right here, but where the town limit now is where?
It's immediately across the street.
Immediately across
Sort
the
of
street.
catty-cornered, right. So it would take a piece of roadway to accomplish that. And having worked in other jurisdictions, that's not a problem in Maryland. When once asked in another jurisdiction whether a property could be annexed, I remember saying that if you can drive to it, you can annex it. So that does happen.
Well, and they say in their April 12th letter that they may choose to vote on annexation on May 14th.
I think we owe them, the towns, right, they know what it's like Millington, we should support what they want in our plans
Do
too.
we have to make a motion to that, Bill?
Well, however you recommend on this, we'll put together a letter and that'll go to county commissioners and they actually make the decision on the waiver. So a motion, I think, will be helpful.
Yeah, the staff recommendation is pretty consistent with a motion right there, if someone wants to offer that.
I'll make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners for the town of Betterton requesting to annex the American Legion property known as, or identified as tax map or parcel 88 and 130 on tax map 4 for their review and then to forward on to the town of Betterton's mayor and council. You can understand that.
Including, we want the waiver included, don't we?
Include the 5-year waiver.
And to include doing away with the 5-year and granting them a 5-year zoning waiver.
Have a second?
Second.
All
I
discussion?
I have a little discussion here. Now, you're just saying that one parcel, right? But isn't what we're looking at two parcels?
It is, parcel 88, parcel 130.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say 130, okay.
Any-
Disregard what I said.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. I just didn't hear you say 130.
Our next item is our zoning review. You need to get a thin one back here, Carl. You break your neck.
Tyler's opening up the interactive map application that he's put together, so if we're talking about these, if you want to have questions as to where the easements are, where water and sewer is, or you need to see an aerial because you want to know what else is happening on the ground, he can do that. We also have some large-size printed maps, and
What should I do with the big maps?
I think they're fine where they are. If we need them, you can go grab them if we need to do anything up here.
Yeah, that's the problem when they hire all these young people, they think our eyes are as good as theirs.
All right.
Great.
Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay, so the first map in your packet, we've got two things that we're sort of bringing back to you because in sort of going through everything one last time, we realized we'd inadvertently kind of given some misinformation. Had incomplete information, not misinformation, incomplete. So the first one, we're going back to the Harris and Chandler up at Coleman. So that, which is page 95, map 4, and it was determined that this property is split zone because it's got some critical area on it, and that his request had actually been for the land that's zoned AZD right now to be rezoned community residential, and for what is in the Resource Conservation District to be made critical area residential. We had only presented to you the AZD portion of it, and wanted to make sure you understood that it did include the entire property with 2 different zoning districts.
So which map of the two here shows the end result?
The one that is page 95 printed at the bottom, red map 4 at the top.
So he can't have community residential within the critical areas, right?
No, so the equivalent zoning district is the critical area residential. The recommendation that you had voted on before
So
would
it's the
have,
same, yeah.
would have left that corner of the property as RCD. And I don't think that was your intent or his intent.
No, we were allowing for upzoning, so we,
Do we need to make a new motion on that then, Carl, or do we
I
just?
think you should.
someone make,
So you're going to make a motion about the RCD section.
I make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners for the lands of Arthur Harris III and Ann Chandler for the property located at 12781 Still Pond Creek Road, shown as parcel 92 on map 12, to change the zoning from Resource Conservation District to critical area residential. Do we have to do the other AZD too, or just that?
You already did the AZD on the 11th, so I think we're okay there.
Is that good enough?
Yes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Then we're on page 100 at the bottom, map 15 at the top. This is again a property where you voted on lot 1, and the request involved both lot 1 and lot 2. So we're just bringing that back again for clarification.
I make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners for the lands of Alberta Francis and James E. Lindauer located at 10263 Wharton Road, indicated as Lot 2 on parcel 31, map 28, to change from industrial to AZD.
Second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Now we're on page 107, map 33, and I know that Mr. Young, who is representing these applicants, is online. I don't know if he has anything to say before we discuss the map or not. So this is a request from, yep, there you go, Lance.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you see me and hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'm primarily here to answer any questions that you might have about our request. I can give you a 2-minute summary of what the request is. I'm here representing Yvonne and Edward Mills. They own 2 properties that are subject to this request. They're on tax map 13, parcels 109 and 33A. Parcel 109 is where they currently have a business, which is All Pro Customs. They sell golf carts there on the property. That property is currently split zoned. It's primarily zoned crossroad commercial, but it became split zoned a few years ago when they added a little bit of property to it from the adjacent property that was agricultural zoned. So we were requesting that become zoned crossroad commercial, or what we're understanding is going to be commercial, because I think we're getting rid of the crossroad commercial designation. But we want that all zoned one thing instead of having it split zoned. The second property is right close to it. It's property parcel 33A. That one's owned only by Yvonne Mills. She bought that property. It currently has a church on it. It was historically used as a church property. Hasn't been used as a church property for quite a while. They don't have any definite plans for the property right now, but they desire for that to be zoned commercial as well. There are some other commercial properties within the vicinity. There's you might recognize Molly's is just right up the road, one or 2 parcels away. And then I believe across the road was Sassafras Realty, which was also zoned commercial properties. So if you have any questions for me, I'm here to answer those. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant or staff?
What is on parcel 44?
A residence,
Residents.
not owned
Yeah.
by either person.
Yeah, parcel, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Carla, but the parcel 44 is owned by a family member. It's the sister of Yvonne.
Are they favorably disposed toward this?
They are not opposed to it. Correct.
Motion.
Mine heartburns that little piece of ag. stuck in the middle of them, but.
Well, I was gonna say, would it make sense to make all of that commercial? Take parcel 44, make that, zone that commercial also.
But then you got residents on it though.
Right, it's got a single-family residence on it. It is not a commercial use.
And yeah, they don't want, apparently want to do it.
Let me make sure I get this right.
No, there is, I know there's a residence on it, I'm just,
We can't arbitrarily do that.
I was wondering what they would do with that church.
Ready for a motion?
Yes.
I gotta find the people's names first.
Yvonne and Eddie.
I make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners to rezone from agricultural to commercial, 2 parcels, being parcel 33A on tax map 13, located at 12403 Augustin Herman Highway in Kennedyville, and a portion of parcel 109, which is currently zoned ag to commercial, for the lands of, what was her name?
Mills, Eddie.
Yvonne
Mills.
Eddie Vaughn.
Edward and Yvonne Mills.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, when we did this the first time, you asked if the people that were here for their
Oh,
properties,
okay.
if they wanted to come out of order.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't know if at this point you want to let them come forward, or if you want us to just go through the list.
Oh, I guess,
I mean, I know that Mr. Hoagland is here
I'm
for
sorry.
his.
He likes us. Robin, would you like to come forward and make your request, so you don't have to stay for anything else? Or you want staff to make it?
Oh, yeah, I like what you're doing. It's answering my, it's probably answering my question.
Is this for Brayton?
Yes.
Okay. We don't have that one in your packet today. But we can bring it up online if you want us to.
Which one was that out there? Hopewell?
Hopewell.
Didn't we
Hopewell,
do that
yeah.
last week?
This was the Brayton Family Limited Partnership properties, and we deferred them to this meeting, hoping to get additional information.
Where is it?
That is right outside Chestertown,
Yeah.
next to where Dixon is.
Right across from Sons and Sons.
Yeah. Going in. I got you. You got it?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, right in there. Yep, right there. So there had been a request put forward, I believe, probably even in 2020, to rezone this from intense village to commercial.
I think we just wanted to make sure they still wanted to have it done.
Yes.
Did we?
They still do.
Okay, yeah, I was just here because it's been so long, I had to refresh my memory and thank you for bringing it up. Yes, that was my husband's wishes, and I'm just here to represent what he had outlined as his plans. And I think I found it in the northeast extension. Is that a part of it? That property, does that include the northeast? Is that called the northeast extension? No, maybe not.
Maybe,
Anyway.
maybe in Chestertown's plans it is?
It may have been in Chestertown's plan, yeah.
Oh, yes, that's what it was, okay.
Yeah.
So it's intended to be a primarily commercial area, so I think he must have read that and then put it into his request. It is in ag use now, and will continue that way, but that was his, he was thinking ahead, I don't know when.
It's not in our book.
We only deferred, we agreed with it, we just deferred because we weren't sure you still wanted it in the family. So, okay, well, I think we can just affirm that we will we'll make a motion.
I don't know the addresses, but the property we looked at last month for Neil Brayton, located at Hopewell Corner
It's map 37,
on map 37,
parcel 76,
parcel 76,
and parcel 97.
and parcel 97 to be zoned commercial.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Rob, and you know, go ahead. You're next. Mr. Roy, would you like to do yours? Would you like to have your application heard or requested? Sure. Now we have to find it in our packet, though. That's our.
On page 145.
Well, thank you. Ray.
Right.
Go ahead. What is your request?
My name is Roy Hoagland, and my address is 9522 Fairley Road, Chestertown, Maryland. And I'm here representing a piece of property that I own on Route 20. It is currently zoned community residential, and I'm requesting a change over to Village District. And I feel that it follows the objectives of the Smart Growth Plan under village zoning. It's served by public water and sewer. It's in the sanitary district. I think you actually have to have structures on a property to be known as in the sanitary or in the water and sewer district. But it's in a sanitary district. The reason I feel that this should be changed is because it allows for a different variety of houses that can be built on it. It allows for smaller lot size, which would, in this district, it allows for duplexes and quadruplexes, and I think that would be beneficial for people looking to have an entry-level house, just because of the cost of detached dwellings right now is so expensive. And under the existing zoning that I've got, the minimum lot size is half acre. And so that would cause the infrastructure cost to be quite high, and the houses would be spread out quite a bit. Under the more intense compact development, it allows for a much more economical use of the land. And I think it would allow for more land to be set aside for buffer and also for enjoyment by the people that live in that area. And so basically for those reasons, I'm requesting that the property be rezoned village.
Thank you. Now, this is in the sewer area, Fairleigh on the map? Okay, that's, to me, that says, it speaks volumes of what the community would want there.
So it has water and sewer.
Well, it could have,
It's in the growth
growth area,
Right, I think it's in the plan.
What do they call it?
Yep.
The master plan.
master plan.
Okay.
I think it's a good piece, some of the land around Fairleigh with the contours of it's not really suited for development purposes, and a lot of this one parcel here that is zoned, that large parcel, so has an extremely amount of wetlands on it, so. And I think it's in keeping with, say, the smart growth policies, keeping growth next to somewhere where there's infrastructure.
Is that your motion?
I guess I'll find it, hold on. I make a motion to the county, send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners to change the zoning on the lands of Roy Hoagland, indicated as parcel number 24 on tax map 36, to change from community residential zoning to village district zoning.
It's just parcel one,
That's it.
lot one.
Parcel 1.
Parcel 24, parcel 1.
Parcel 24, parcel number 1.
There you go.
A second?
And should we put part of 2?
Well, that was on map D as coming forward with some of the staff-related points of discussion. And I was gonna ask, do you wanna just do that now?
Yes.
Well, I would think we should.
Okay.
So I want me to change that to, and part of,
What page is that on, Carl?
That is on page 158.
so we'll just jump right to that then. But we got to second that and vote on it. one I just did.
All in favor?
Aye.
And which one we on now, Carla?
Page
158.
158.
What they're
I make a
proposing.
motion
That this get converted to ag.
that goes to ag, or
That is a discussion that you can have with Mr. Hoagland.
Mr. Hoagland, what would you prefer?
What is happening here is that the zoning line was set before he did the subdivision.
Right.
And the subdivision then left a strip of land on parcel 24, parcel 2, that has the community residential zoning. So he put in the request, and we've just talked about parcel 1, and how I think we should address what is the best outcome for parcel 2.
It would seem to me visually that we're getting out into farm country there. And it's not, it can't be in the water sewer district, and not that far out.
Well, it's currently in the water and sewer district.
Parcel 2 is?
Just a portion.
The
Just the
zoning.
portion, right.
That
So
sliver is.
that's all, but, okay.
Yeah, the subdivision came after this sanitary district was established. And so when I sat down with Macron, I said, well, let's just make a nice clear line. We'll split the property in two so that there's 205-acre parcels. And so this one sliver was left in the sanitary district. And so, I mean, I'm fine with taking that out of the sanitary district if parcel 1 can go to village zoning.
Okay.
What if the piece that's on parcel 2, you just do a lot line adjustment and make that all part of parcel 1?
Why would he
Because
pay for
that's-
that?
That's something that is acceptable to, if that's something that's acceptable to you folks. I'm not requesting that, but I mean, it's a plus for me, but I'm not
We
requesting
can
it.
correct it just with the.
Would you change it to
We
village?
just change it.
Or to
Change it to ag.
ag?
It
That's
costs
cheaper.
money to
That's
do the
cheap.
lot line
It's
adjustment.
cheaper for him to just do it that way.
Well, that's fine, I just didn't know if you wanted to keep it.
He's fine with it.
Let's just
I'm
go
fine
with-
if it stays with just straight ag, I mean, it's parcel 2, just
Would that be your
100%.
preference, Mr. Hoagland?
Parcel 2 would be 100% ag then, you're saying?
Yes.
There is I forgot about something. My sister and I own parcel 1. I own parcel 2. So, I mean, I can do that. I'll just pay her for whatever happens here. Or she'll pay me, or we'll exchange somehow, but see.
We're not moving a line at all.
Yeah, we are moving a line.
No,
Moving
we're
the
zoning,
zoning.
just
We're
the
not moving
zoning.
the property line.
Talking about that
Moving the
sliver.
property
No.
line.
We're not, he recommended moving.
He suggested
It's just a
you could
question
do
I
that.
asked.
Oh, okay. So
Well, you would have to pay a surveyor to do that.
Right,
and
right, right,
Record it.
okay.
Well, Mr. Hoagland, I think we would prefer it to go to ag.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so you'd like that section that's
Yes.
currently in sanitary just to go to ag?
right,
Okay,
And then village for the remainder.
yeah,
Good.
sure.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Do we have to make a motion on that?
Yes.
Because it is, we're changing the zoning, yeah.
I make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation
Okay, so this will just come out.
for
Yes.
This will just come out.
a portion of parcel number 2, which is zoned community residential, to be changed to ag, AZD, on the lands of Roy Hoagland.
It's
Got much information.
parcel 24, parcel 2.
24, parcel 2.
Parcel 24, part of parcel number 2.
Yes.
I have motion,
Good luck where you
second.
work on all these.
Second. We have a second, all in favor?
Second.
Aye. Aye.
So right now, this is.
And then your other request
Thank
was
you,
just
Roy.
that you were zoning.
Or you- Oh, you got another one?
It was just that the zoning remained the same.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
So-
all right.
And everybody's
Roy.
agreeable to that.
Thank you for your support.
Roy and his father have been sitting in here for 20 years.
Which is actually enough for this tab.
About time, Roy, you get on the other side of that table. Not you, I mean him.
Which one?
He's an expert.
We are on Franklin Kelly. 34,
What page?
let me get back down there.
112.
Page 112.
He wants to go from village to ag.
Yes, indeed.
I think the answer is no.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
Right there in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there at the intersection when you're going into Rock Hall. I make a recommendation to the county commissioners, when we send an unfavorable recommendation for the lands of Frank A. Kelly located at 5893 Crosby Road, Rock Hall, Maryland, to leave his,
Zoning.
or to change his zoning from village to agriculture.
Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
These ought to be the same too.
Okay, we are now map 35, page 115. This was a request for 5 properties, 4 of them to go from either critical area residential or community residential to village, and one of them, it turns out, is already village, so. They are circled in red, they're in Chesapeake Landing.
They are, I'm sorry.
They're outlined
Yes.
in red, and he wanted to change all of them to village.
Good house, LLC.
And it turns out one of them is already village, so we don't have to do anything there.
I was assuming we want to leave them all the same.
Yep.
So. Did you say map 35?
Uh-huh.
20, should be 27.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, it's page number, our map.
That map. You said the tax map.
So many pages.
No, not tax map.
That's page 115.
Yeah, it's got different pages.
Tax map 27.
Correct.
I make a recommendation that we send an unfavorable I make a motion that we send an unfavorable recommendation to the county commissioners for the lands of Good House LLC on their parcels located on map 27 and indicated as parcel 58, parcel 444, parcel 470, parcel 516, parcel 577, and parcel 691.
Second.
All in favor?
Probably want to amend and leave 58 out,
Yeah.
because 58's
But you're just recommending that,
already village.
right, but you're recommending that the zoning
Doesn't.
doesn't
Around
change.
all of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
so.
So we got a second and a motion, a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, yeah.
You need to say aye, Paul Rogan, second.
Yeah. There you go.
There you go.
Next time in the minutes, it'll be ROGE. then I can see that.
Okay, next.
Hey, Carl.
Printed page 130, red map page 36, tax map 7. This was a request to go from community residential to commercial. This is that little triangular property.
What page?
131 and 130.
If you're familiar with 213 coming out of Galena, this is kind of where the billboard is.
And he wants to change it.
Commercial.
Commercial. And there was some letters and justification for his request.
And he wants to, for like a roadside stand, but at 1/10 of an acre, you can't park on that road. I don't know, you have any room for anything, do you? What's 10,000 square feet? Or what, no, it's.
1/10 of an acre is 4,300 square feet.
Yeah. I'd hate to see, I know when the state's gonna require you to have parking, or you are, you're not gonna let you park on the side of the road selling trinkets, or,
So he can't feasibly do what he wants
I
to do
don't think he
anyway.
can with 40.
I don't know. He hasn't put forward a proposal, so I really don't know.
Okay.
And I think when this one, if he were to go survey this one, I have to say, I'm not entirely sure what a survey is going to show. The way the tax maps are drawn and how you find the assessment data on this one is a little confusing, and so
It's, number one, it would be just commercial there, stuck out in the middle of nowhere. And the amount of truck traffic on this road, 24 hours a day, is just unbelievable. I can't see pulling off the side of the road. There's definitely no room to park there.
Does he own parcel 16 as well?
no, I don't believe he does.
Okay.
We can double check that if you want. The square above it, that one.
Yeah, I think that makes a difference, because what he really wants to do is open up a veggie stand, and he owns parcel 16, he could presumably provide off street parking.
Right.
James and Beverly Chance own it, though.
James and Beverly, who?
Chance,
Oh, okay.
that's what people know.
I can make a motion if you want.
Thank you.
Make a motion that we send an unfavorable recommendation to the county commissioners for the lands of Bram Weinstein, located at 13715 Augustine Herman Highway, Galena, Maryland, to leave his zoning as critical area residential, or community residential, I'm sorry, and not to change it to commercial.
Can I ask a question before we take
Wait,
action on
second.
this?
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Discussion.
It was Paul.
Does it make a difference? I mean, this lot is so tiny in the first place, they can't put a house on it either, right?
Probably not.
So it doesn't make any difference.
He's trying
What
to find
it's
some
so
use
good.
for it.
Although, if he bought some land from the neighboring owner, then somebody probably could put a house on it.
But right now, it's basically an unbuildable lot.
There's a
Likely.
thing called variances, and they generally grant you a variance if you had a house on it or something. We're not here to render property unbuildable.
I'm just wondering if it doesn't make any difference.
It's just a no-good law.
All right. I think we have, now we have discussion. All those in favor of Bill's motion? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Did you abstain or did you vote?
I'm going to abstain on this one.
Okay. Thank you, I'm sorry, I didn't. Go ahead.
Okay. The next one is page 134. This is essentially a request to not, it became a request to not change the zoning. It's currently zoned rural residential. By combining those zoning districts, and it's currently zoned rural residential. His request was to go to community residential. When we combine those two zoning districts, he gets what he wants. So I don't know that we need to do anything there. We're just bringing it forward.
Don't need to make a motion and leave it the same, we're okay.
You want to do anything?
Cindy, should they make the motion?
We have on other ones.
as is.
Okay.
Okay. Need a vote?
We can add it to your as-is
Add it
list.
to the as-is list.
Yep,
Oh, okay. Is that my, is this the one I have?
it is, and I've already written down that we need to
Okay,
add.
good, you'll read them all, good. Thank you.
You still got a list.
Okay, next.
Page 139, red map 38. This was a request for somebody who wanted to go from Resource Conservation District to Community Residential. And again, when we have these critical area properties, there's really not much we can do.
What was the rationale, or what did they think they were getting? I'm just curious.
I,
That's all right, if I don't want to pull
Probably had
whatever.
a tree you wanted to take down. Thought it would get them out of critical area.
Yeah, just the zoning would change
I
it.
don't know. I mean, they're in the critical area, that's.
So we make a motion that, to send an unfavorable recommendation on John W. Staniford's and Karen Yasinski's request to change the zoning on their property on map 45, parcel 8, lot 2, from critical area to community residential.
We have a second?
Second it. Bill Crowley seconds it.
Yay.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed or abstained? Okay, thank you.
The transcription actually picks that up. Claude can actually say, tell, and make a motion. There are real advantages.
So the next request on page 142, red map 39, is very similar in nature. The owner had listed that they wanted to go residential. I have spoken to them, and they do understand that being in the critical area, there's really, that's what they are, so.
So we make a motion to send an unfavorable recommendation on John and Deborah Orr's request to change the zoning on their property at 14091 Greg Neck Road, map 1, parcel 302, and have it remain the same.
Second. All in favor?
Very strong.
Aye. Any opposed?
Okay, we've done Hoagland on that.
All right. We've already done the next, we've talked about one of them. The other one from Mr. Hoagland is on our sort of consent list of zoning staying the same. So we are now on page 149, red map 42. And this is a request that parcel 48 go from community residential to AZD.
It's all part of the same field.
Yes, it is.
Anybody got a problem with it?
Nope. It doesn't perk anyway.
I make recommendation that we send I make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners to change the zoning on the lands of Rebecca Ann and George H. Kendall, indicated as parcel 48 on map 48, to change their zoning from community residential to agricultural zoning district.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Just a minute. Who owns parcel 14?
Same people.
Same people.
Same people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, and when you can see in the aerial, it's all tilled as the
Yeah.
same farm.
They do it anyway.
We have a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay. So we're at the point in the packet to kind of go over some stuff that staff has noticed. Do you want to do the kind of consent list?
Yeah, why don't you read the consent list?
Okay.
Thank you, Carl.
Cindy, what information, how detailed does this all need to be? For map and parcel number, owner name? I've got a list of people.
It's, and the Board of County Commissioners, amendments have to be in writing to be adopted. So it is all in writing, could it not be moved as written?
As you read it off, and we can do it as consent, as a,
Can do that.
It's, could you add it to?
I mean, I can add it to, I can give you the map numbers really quickly. It's adding in a lot.
You can add it to the minutes, right?
Right, you can that page 2 minutes. Yep. You could adopt the list as written.
okay. Why don't you just read them off for us, and then we'll, and so everyone, does everyone have that or not?
No,
Okay,
not everybody
okay.
has that list. So these are the properties that were, owner wanted to make sure their zoning remains the same. We have F&S Operations LLC, Joan Horsey, Jimstown LLC, Walter and Tracy Landon, Scott and Sherry Smith, Todd and Diane Smith, Thomas Lenz, John Masalag, Mary Jane Mayo, John and Pamela Schwartz, Elizabeth Cisco, Roy Hoagland, and John North.
Motion to accept that list into our minutes.
I
Go ahead.
move
Yeah.
that we accept the list provided by staff of people who wish to keep their zoning the same, as written.
I'll second it. Bill Crowding seconds it.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Carl.
Okay, so now we're at the last part of our packet here. And I'm just going to say a few kind of introductory words that Tyler went through and took the new critical area line, and we've done that cleanup. Most of the times it was really easy. Something that was Resource Conservation District just automatically became AZD. Something that was critical area residential became community residential, or vice versa, because the line moved in both directions. And those were pretty minor corrections. In doing that, we also came across a couple of other properties that we felt merited more review and discussion as we were kind of doing this cleanup, and so that's what we've brought forward to you. The first one is page 155. These are lettered maps, so map A. And where some of these have kind of what the zoning was in 2002, or what the tax map looked like in 2002, which you can see on your printed page. In this first one, there were 2 parcels that are now in just sort of that unmarked area of village zoning district that were absorbed into parcel 169. And that sort of absorption of those parcels happened at the same time that the owner of parcel 169 also did a subdivision of a 200-acre farm into 3 farms, smaller farms. They're all still like 70, 80 acres. And so we wanted to bring that to you as a couple of options, because obviously there is some value to having this village zoning there if he wanted to do something more. It's probably about 2 acres. So we wanted to just kind of go, there are a couple of options. One is you could say, take it all out. We can leave it as it is, or we could potentially like square it up to that southern edge of parcel 202. So just draw a line from where you see the corner of parcel 482 straight to parcel 202 and make that area village. Did a little additional research after I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. Parcel, what is shown here as 2, has a house on it. It has, it is paying for sewer allocation. There are vacant lot allocations on the lots that are north and south of that. So the other, you can sort of see them a little better on the map on the screen, how those 3 parcels kind of fan out from the creek. That's what was the 200-acre farm.
Are we hidden into Fairleigh? Is that what we're doing?
No, I'm sorry, we're down at Crosby.
It's
So this is,
Okay.
yeah, Eadsville Roads and 280.
Oh, okay, yeah, I know where you're talking about now.
Yeah, sorry.
There's 202 is an old church.
Is that in?
I think there's actually a house there now, but yeah.
Yeah, there is, yep.
Yeah, it was a
In
church.
the master water and sewer plan?
What is zoned village is in the water and sewer plan, yes.
But this piece wouldn't be.
Well, and the large farm lots show as being in the master and sewer plan because he is paying a sewer allocation if somebody wants to build a house on lot 1 or lot 3, and lot 2, the house on 2,
It's backed by the water.
it is backed by the water, but I think that actually has an allocation that he pays now. So. And there, I think 4 or 5 years ago, there were about 50 allocations that were still available in. what is known as the Piney Neck, Skinner's Neck, Wesley Chapel
It
sewer
just seemed
service
to me
area.
that a few years ago, that piece across the road wanted to build a house or wanted an allocation and couldn't get it because he wasn't in the.
He wasn't in, correct, that is
But
correct.
this piece will be.
Yes,
If we move this up
It
here.
doesn't do any good for us to move it. If
Yes.
that's not gonna put him in. He needs to be in already.
who,
Right.
parcel
For
202?
the guy, yeah.
No, this empty area that
This,
you're talking.
that empty area is in the
Oh, okay.
sewer service. Yes.
Can we flash sewer service area up?
But one of their options is to make this all,
Well, that's what I would
Village.
think you do.
yeah.
I don't have any problem with making spook money.
Yeah, he appreciates that. If you're listening, Spook. Yeah.
So option 2.
Yeah, so it is, isn't it?
Now, I think what you see as the village zoning is what was defined as the rural village of Crosby for the priority funding area. And parcel 158 and parcel 202 were not included in that.
I'm okay with leaving it in there, but,
I don't even know how to make that motion.
yeah. Just shoot.
So you're gonna, I guess you're telling us to kind of square it off to the southern edge?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's your motion.
Second.
I would make a motion to the county commissioners that we rezone a portion of parcel 169, Lot 1 and Lot 2, to extend from the northeast corner of parcel 482 to the southeast corner of parcel 202.
Okay, thank you.
Got a second, Ray?
Yes, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Tyler, we're going up to Galena. So the next one, this is an area where the critical area changed most dramatically. Where it was determined that, I believe that's Dyer Creek up there at Galena, was not titled as far towards 213 as we thought in 1985, or whenever those maps were originally done. And so the parcel on the east side, what's green and has the purple shading in it, is what we're talking about. And this is one where that half of, I wish I had the parcel number on, it's parcel 4, lot 1, I guess. Currently, half of that is zoned community residential. The other half we thought was in the critical area, and it was Resource Conservation District. And we just felt it was a large enough area to have your input as to whether or not all of parcel 4, that is outside of the critical area, should be community residential.
And parcel 158 as well, or 159, or do we do that
Yes.
separate?
Yep.
And 61?
And 61, yes. I think that's a lot. I think that's part
Yeah,
of
that's part of.
That's, what's his name?
349,
Byler's
lot
out there,
61,
isn't it?
yeah.
Makes sense to me. What, is 201 the Galena sewer plant?
Yes.
And it's zoned AZD?
Well, it's currently zoned Resource Conservation District. It
Oh,
would go to
right.
AZD,
Yeah.
unless you want it to go to something different.
I just don't know where, I mean, it's a shame that, it feels like it shouldn't be AZD, but it's got a sewer plant.
This down here would be
This
AZD.
parcel that's shown
Right now, it's
proposed for
community
EC is the only
residential,
industrial
resource
critical area
conservation.
parcel in the county.
No.
No.
That's confusing.
Right, and so what is parcel 240 currently is industrial critical area. We're just making that EC, that's trigas and oil. The change for parcel 2 from making all of that rural character is pretty equivalent to Resource Conservation District, so that and I mean, Bill, are these are sort of cleanups. Do they, how do you,
I would just make a recommendation that the zoning changes as indicated on map B, page 156 of our pamphlet.
Do
I
we do
can't
that
list all
for
of
map
them.
C too? Do we do that for map C too?
To me, that's an understandable motion.
Yeah, because of critical change, due to the change in the critical area. I mean, that's a correction of, you know.
Map C, this is up at Betterton.
Wait, can we get a motion on the, we might as well do.
Sorry, I thought we had
delete
one.
that. Yeah, motion, Bill's motion.
Second, Ray.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Now, sorry, Carl.
My fault.
No, I don't know that it was, I just, seems like
Okay,
another village or town, so.
C, now we're going to Betterton, right next to where we were talking about the annexation area. And this one is really more about parcel 16, in that it is currently considered resource conservation district. Obviously, AZD is the equivalent district, you know, but you could also go, it's surrounded by community residential. It comes off of, is that what, 6th Avenue, and decide something differently.
Well, Betterton doesn't need any more town. They've got enough town out there already, like 2/3 of the open space out there.
I make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners to do the cleanup of the critical area designations of those parcels indicated on map C, page 157.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
Yep. I think we already did D.
Yeah.
On map E, this is a discussion about parcel 116. This is up at Goltz. And the road that you can see on the tax map is Black Bottom Road. And DNR purchased this property in 2020. And our recommendation is that it be all AZD.
Now, this is also under conservation.
This doesn't have an easement outside of the deed that transferred it from the Eastern Trail Land Conservancy to DNR. But it was purchased by DNR with the intent of kind of preserving the wetlands and the coastal bays that are in here. This is all part of that area up in Millington where DNR has done owns a lot of land protecting the coastal bays, which are homes to a number of endangered species.
I would say the purchase by DNR itself is the conservation action.
And these are
Those
with a lot of
Old hog
wildlife.
lots.
Those are tree barking frogs.
Motion, please, if anyone.
Motion to amend the zoning on parcel 116 in Goltz owned by DNR to make the entire parcel ag.
Second.
Second, Bill Crowley, second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
So map F is much smaller, and I think really is the result of a tax map error in that older tax maps didn't show that the area circled in red was actually part of 31. Our recommendation is to just make all of parcel 31 employment center.
I move to make all of parcel 31 employment center.
Second?
Second.
Want to reference
Page, map F, page 160.
Thank you, Liz. As amended, second?
Second again.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Map G. This zoning configuration is the result of an adjustment of lot lines that was completed in 2010. I believe it was parcel 162, I think, went that long, very long and deep property, and the owners of parcel 143 probably purchased that, and 162 became much smaller. So we're just recommending that the split zoning be eliminated and all of parcel 143 be community residential.
Should 162 also, or doesn't matter?
That's owned by someone else, isn't it?
It is owned by somebody else.
These are staff recommendations, though.
Right. It is not in the sewer service area,
Okay, that's in there. There's,
whereas the front of parcel 143 is.
okay, gotcha.
We'll make a recommendation to the county commissioners that we accept staff's rezoning request on parcel 143 as indicated on map G and page 161 of our booklet.
A second?
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Map H. This is back up where Molly's is. So you can see in 2002, there's a little inset with the tax map in your handout. What was zoned Crossroads Commercial was comprised of four little lots completely and a part of Lot 3. They've done some adjustment of lot lines since then. One option is to just straighten out the zoning line. You can see how here in what Tyler has pulled up on the screen, that it's sort of a little crooked and your other option would be to just make all of Lot 2 commercial. And Lot 2 is where you have Molly's and, is it still Chesapeake Diesel?
No, it's
all Molly's.
No.
Okay, but,
I would suggest you make that all the same as a commercial.
All commercial.
Yeah, I would too.
And the other, Alabama Nursery or Farm Bureau business, that's in AZD then?
yes, and I would, given its current use, I think I would recommend that it stay how it is, because they've been able to do some things because they're AZD that they couldn't do in the commercial district. And vice versa, I think, so I think,
Okay.
but I think Lot 2 there, making that all commercial makes perfect sense, particularly if you were to look at the aerial where they've already put some blacktop.
But that would be including part of lot number 3 as well into this zoning request?
Straighten that line.
Just, well, the line,
That, they don't want it though.
they, leave the zoning line where it is for Lot 3.
What about lot 5?
So you're
Lot 5
leaving-
is a residence, so leave it alone.
So you're just changing the zoning on lot 2?
Correct.
And you're leaving lot 3 alone?
Leaving Lot 3 as it is.
I make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners to change all of lot 2 of parcel 76 as indicated on map H, page 162 of our booklet.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
So map I, this, you can see the 2002 tax map inset where it was assumed that the houses, where 287 is, was further down towards Kennedyville. And so that's why it was zoned village. And then they've done some adjustment lot lines and survey work since then, and that wasn't actually a parcel. So,
So the perception was that parcel 287 occurred where the blue spot is.
correct,
But it did not.
it did not.
So you're getting rid of the blue spot on 239?
That-
Make it all AZD?
That would be our suggestion,
Okay.
yes. And again, because that's kind of taking something away from somebody, we felt it was more important to bring that to you.
Any problem with that?
I make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to county commissioners to change the zoning as indicated on map 1, parcel 163 of their booklet.
Second?
Very strong second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Map J is up at the turn from Lambs Meadow Road to Still Pond Road. This is where Chris Shorter has his auto repair business on parcel 39, lot 2, and Browns have their business on parcel 38A. Due to adjustment of lot lines that have happened since 2002, parcel 38A has gotten larger, and our recommendation would be to make all of it commercial.
All of 38A?
All of 38A.
He's basically occupied.
He is, yes, and the buildings that have been built there they are right on that zoning line, and I think that they would like to have flexibility to do more. And imagine if they had paid attention, that is somebody who would have come in.
I make a recommendation, anybody got any problem with it? Make a motion that we say, send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners to change the zoning on parcel 38A to all commercial, as indicated on map J, page 164 of our booklet.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, finally, map K. This is a parcel that since 2002 has gone under a Malf easement, parcel 89. Yep. And you can see that it is half AZD and half village. Since they have sold the development rights off the property and it is limited to agricultural use, we were just recommending that it all be made AZD.
This is Dave Easton's.
So it doesn't affect what he could do on it at all.
No, and it actually might even make it easier for somebody to farm it.
Anyone got a problem with it?
No.
I make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the county commissioners to change the portion of parcel 89 that is currently zoned village to agricultural zoning district as indicated on map K, parcel 165 of our zoning pamphlet. Page.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
He be done.
Are we supposed to pop champagne now or something? Is it all out off of our lap now?
I mean,
Congratulations.
well, there were a couple others that had been deferred, right? Did we need to go back to those?
Oh, yes, please, thank you. You can,
There was,
no balls.
there was S&L
someone
Farms.
whoever.
That's Joyce.
Okay,
And Brayton.
and Brayton, okay.
That's the only two letters that I sent.
Okay. And then
Hold on, Champagne.
we've abandoned Tallchester Village townhouses. We're just going to leave that alone. And I think we're going to leave Broadneck alone.
That's it?
Is there one more? So do you want to do SNL or no?
I didn't, did you hear back from them? Is there something to do?
I have not heard back.
Okay. This was one of the ones from our first review, which, can you, Tyler, it was map 13, it's SNL Farms, up by Kevin Kimball and Billy Norris. It's off of Route 20 as you're coming out of town. There it is. And on it's the one that's highlighted in kind of the blue striping.
Oh, okay. Next to the Brampton?
Yes, getting close to, yes.
Unclear request.
So it's, yeah, next to Brampton. So the form was submitted. The owner listed commercial/residential, but didn't really give a zoning district. And I guess we have reached out to them a second time and still no response. Which I guess means you could do nothing and then the owner could still come to the county commissioners.
Yeah.
Yep. But I mean, they got a letter or a,
They've-
well, then I think, yeah, we just let them.
Let's just make it no change and send it to the commissioners.
So you want to make a motion?
What parcel?
It's map 44, parcel 313.
I make a motion that we send an unfavorable recommendation to change, well, a favorable recommendation to leave, no. I make a motion that we leave the zoning the same on what,
Map 44,
map 44,
parcel 313.
parcel 313.
That exists at this point.
That is currently existing.
There you go.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do we have any staff reports?
I did want to say something.
Bill, you gonna tell us now when we're gonna get us our new books and maps now that we've got this all done?
That's gonna be a little.
Give a little time.
Some CAC stuff to do first,
yeah.
yeah.
So I did want to, this isn't an information item, I did want to address sort of the conversation as a process issue about the Mason Solar. I don't want to discuss that, but I want to discuss how staff review things and how they come before you. So my instructions to staff, and my understanding is this is precedent in this county, is that we review projects to meet code. We don't ask for additional things from applicants. We don't make them go back and change their plans and add things because we think it would be a good idea. We require them to meet code, and in the staff recommendations to you, we do add things that you can recommend to, add more to the project. And you have the power and are empowered by state law and by this county to make additional requests for things like landscaping and location and other, amenities on the property. And just so you know, when I sit as you on administrative adjustments, I'm essentially being this board for those administrative hearings. I often require additional landscaping and other things. So we are cognizant of that, but our sort of the history of this department is we don't negotiate with people for things beyond the code before they get to you. You do. So, and I've worked in other jurisdictions where it is different, but my understanding is that is how it has been here for a long time. And if you desire for staff to negotiate in a different sort of way, I'm happy to put together a resolution and have the Board of County Commissioners instruct us to do that. I have no problem with that, but that's not how we do it. So really, you all have that power. So, and I'm happy to have any legal add-ons to that, because I'm sort of, this is not a prepared piece, so.
Bill, when we talk about these solars, you know, when the big discussion came before the Planning Commission 10 years ago for these scale solar systems, or solar arrays, they were for the farm. They were going, that electric would offset the dairy barn, or it would offset the operation of the farm. I believe that's where it came into, the solar collection system will be incidental of the farm, or the use of the farm. I don't see where these solar arrays that are being leased out, and there's not even a house on the farm. I wasn't here for the voting on the one in Still Pond, but that definitely, that farm was owned by an entity up in Pennsylvania somewhere. I just don't see where that is an incidental use to the farm.
We can't evaluate projects based on who owns them. That's something we cannot do.
I mean,
And for us and for your code, agricultural use is a primary use. If you are farming the property, that is the principal use,
and
assuming you
you're
have more than 20
considering
acres.
solar panels to be farming the property.
No, that's not, but that is, the principal use doesn't have to be a house. The principal use can be a different use. And my understanding.
I think your point, though, is the way that code was written and the idea that you could have up to a maximum of 5 acres inside the fencing for a solar was the intent wasn't to go out and have all these 5-acre commercial solar fields on agricultural land, but that's what it's backed into, and it's kind of like a loophole, you know? They've said, we can't do 70-acre projects, but we can do 1 5-acre project at a time.
Or more. And there's gonna be more and more pressure on it. I mean, it's gotta be realistic.
Well, I feel sorry for the guys that come in here, because they really do pay a price for the fact that all the ones that have been done so far are so terrible.
Right.
And 3 of the worst ones are county projects.
They were approved under different standards, though.
But they,
Well, not that Fairleigh one, not, because I had to recuse myself. I managed a farm next door, and we asked for stuff, and they barely did it. And actually, I had to hire the people to do it, and they paid them because it's solar, but.
Well, and that's why we need a good, solid maintenance agreement, you know, and it needs to be something drawn up so that, basically a template. You know, because they're all going to be the same, and we're going to see more and more and more of these, and eventually they'll get above 5 acres. I mean, it's just going to happen.
Not the way it's written now on ag land.
Yeah, but there'll be, somebody can always ask.
So the biggest threat is not a bunch of 5 acres. The biggest threat is, threat, shouldn't really use that word. I suppose the right word would be the biggest change factor is that the Public Service Commission has the right to set aside zoning and approve projects. So we can say 5 acres, we can say 5 feet. That's really irrelevant if the Public Service Commission chooses to set aside zoning. That really is going to be the major change.
And that's absolutely why property owners receive letters nonstop.
As I've heard that too.
I get 2 a week.
you're
I
afraid,
mean, it's nonstop.
you're afraid to click on the
and
computer to read it,
like
because
the guy
suddenly you're in
said, they're
favor
just,
of it.
They show up at your
they're just
door
fishing
with
and they're
gift
hoping to
baskets
go around
and
the
hats
local
and
zoning to
jackets
put any
and
large-scale
everything.
project.
Right, it's just going to happen. So that's why I say we need some kind of, I think we need some kind of,
Well, the
Template.
bonding should take care of that, though.
and I would,
And by the time it does get to final approval, you will have that information.
right.
So we
Well,
don't
I think we
require
should
all
have
of
it-
that at
We should have
concept.
it here. A lot of times, I hate to say it, from what I've seen, we've left it up to the department to gather all this information, you know, after the fact, after we've approved it. I think we should have it all on the table before we approve it.
Well, thanks for letting
Thank
me
you,
make my
Bill.
comment. I
Appreciate
appreciate it. Thank you. Is that me? I'm sorry. That means lacrosse practice is almost over. So. All right, thank you. Well, that's all for me. I don't know if anyone else
Carly,
has
you have any
comments.
report?
You guys?
You're worn out now from the,
No, I don't have any reports.
Rob, Mark, anything? I don't know. Cindy?
It's 4:30.
That's, thank you for that.
I would say,
That's the
I
report.
like the idea of using the screen so we can see where things are.
Motion to,
That was good.
motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Paul Rogie made the